It's the Grand Chaco, South America's second largest forest, a wilderness which sprawls across the borders of Paraguay, Bolivia, Argentina, and Brazil. This is frontier country in every sense. Despite its remoteness, the Chaco has been fought over fiercely in the past, and there may be more battles not far ahead. Sarah Wheeler.
The armadillo, fully extended when it scuttled from the quebracho trees, snapped into a grapefruit-sized ball. Or almost a ball. It left an armour-plated gap in case a hungry puma came by. A snap would slice off the predator's nose. Moonlight glinted off the armadillo's banded scales. The motionless night grew hotter. Beyond me and the armadillo, ragged silhouettes of low wooden crosses stretched into the black, regimented in rows, like soldiers. The actual soldiers were dead, lying in the loneliest war cemetery, in the remotest wilderness, in the least known country of South America. Fortan Isla Poi, where the armadillo lived, had been a Paraguayan control centre in the Chaco War, a conflict fought from 1932 to 1935 between Bolivia and Paraguay. Both sought control of the northern Chaco. The whiff of petroleum was in the air. Royal Dutch Shell bankrolled Paraguay, while US Standard Oil bet on Bolivia. Oil was never found, but the war cost the lives of about 2% of Bolivians and 3% of the much smaller Paraguayan population, many perishing from thirst. That afternoon, I had visited a small memorial at Fortan Isla Poi. Cobwebs flowed from the back of a handsome painted bust of Commander-in-Chief José Félix Estigarribia, like a bridal veil. From the wall of a brick shelter, a photo gallery of white-faced officers and dark-skinned soldiers stared out. In the cemetery, a canvas sign headed with a Paraguayan flag bore the noble words of an unknown soldier. Comandante Estigarribia told us, "The future will thank you. For this we sacrificed ourselves." But the future wasn't thanking them very graciously, as the poster was lying in the red dirt. Unlike its giant neighbours, Argentina and Brazil, Paraguay has two official languages, Spanish and the indigenous Guarani. But the other 30-plus indigenous languages in the country have no status. Many people who live on the sacred soil of their Chaco ancestors cannot speak Guarani. The World Top 20 Project's global education database ranks Paraguay at number 180. This dire statistic is a legacy of the Stronato, the 35-year despotic reign of Alfredo Stroessner, which ended in 1989. No dictator wants to educate people. The 15 ethnic groups of the Chaco have almost no access to secondary school. Most end up as low-paid day labourers on farms belonging to large landowners. Augusto Roa Bastos, Paraguay's most famous writer, served in the Chaco War as a medical auxiliary while still a teenager. He spent much of his adult life in forced exile during the dictatorship. Roa Bastos called his country an island surrounded by land, conjuring not just the lack of coast, but also its cultural isolation and continental separateness. A swollen bottle tree swayed close to the cemetery. Of course, the palo borracho, or white floss silk tree, only appears to sway. Like balsa, the trunk expands when it takes in water, but doesn't contract when the water dries up, producing uneven shapes which seen together have been described as a drunken forest. Numerous thorn-shaped spikes jutted from the trunk of the Fortan Isla Poi tree, protection against predators long extinct in the Chaco. But the tree wasn't taking any chances. Besides the usual cast of loggers and dam builders, soy barons are poised to invade the Chaco. They have already planted out swathes of East Paraguay, and the crop is by far the country's greatest legal export. Some parts of the western Chaco could yield 2 crops a year. The armadillo, confident no puma was prowling, had unrolled and scuttled back where it came from. As I returned to my own camp, my torch picked up a pair of glossy capybara lounging on the edge of a patch of grassland. When the beam hit them, they slipped down and away. The green land was actually a spawny pool.
Sarah Wheeler. Thank you for listening. I'm Pascal Harter. The producer was Polly Hope, and you can hear more about the real lives behind the global headlines by searching for From Our Own Correspondent on bbc.com. And we'll be back next weekend, so do join us again here on the BBC World Service.
Good morning, Manitoba. You're listening to Information Radio here on CBC Radio 1, 89.3 FM, 990 AM, and everywhere on the CBC Manitoba YouTube page. I'm Corey Funk, sitting in this morning for Marcy Marcusa. We've got a great show ahead for you. I'm going to tell you about it right away. But first, let's say hello to the crew helping us put together today's show. Abby Adeyemi is our studio technician, also keeping an eye on your weather. Darren Morash is our YouTube producer. And Sierra Sanders is our studio director, keeping an eye on your commute. Let's also say good morning to Heather Wells, who is keeping an eye on your news headlines.
Good morning. Well, some parents are applauding Premier Rob Canu's pledge to ban kids 16 and under from using social media and AI chatbots. If approved, Manitoba would be the first province in Canada to implement the ban. Premier Rob Canu says his government has a responsibility to protect youth from platforms that could harm their mental health. We'll hear some reaction from kids themselves and also from those in the school system coming up. And a man from Winnipeg is going on 200 days in an ICE detention center. Clayton Herman moved to the U.S. 20 years ago and overstayed his visa, making him an illegal immigrant. He is now in Adelanto ICE Processing Center in California. We'll hear what that has been like and what he knows about his possible release. That's all coming up in our next local news at 6:30.
Thank you very much, Heather.
Thank you.
Yes, big talker this weekend following the announcement from Rob Canu at that fundraiser about his government's plan to ban social media for youth and AI chatbots as well for youth 16 and under. We're going to have a lot of conversations coming up in their 7 o'clock hour. But coming up this next hour, King Charles and Queen Camilla arrive in the United States today for their first official state visit as King and Queen. We're going to hear about what the UK hopes to achieve with this show of soft power, as well as the provinces to the west of us seek to stop changing their clocks twice a year. One Manitoban has decided to change his clock every day. We're going to hear from a Winnipegger who's decided to live on his very own time zone. That's coming up right here on Information Radio after 6 o'clock. It changes every day with the sunrise. So that should be a fun conversation. I'm Corey Funk, sitting in for Marcy Marcusa. Stay tuned. We'll be back with Information Radio after World Report.
Q. Lee Sung-jin is a filmmaker. You might know him best from his gigantic Netflix hit Beef. Beef is now in its second season, and he'll be here to talk about his fascination with anger and how years of introspection and therapy led to actually authentic writing.
I guess I do have a chip on my shoulder in a lot of ways.
Q with Tom Power. This morning at 10:30 in Newfoundland. And on CBC Listen or wherever you get your podcasts.
Report. Good morning, I'm Christine Birak. We are learning more about the suspect in the shooting at the White House Correspondents' Dinner in Washington, D.C. Cole Thomas Allen is set to make his first court appearance today. He is facing several charges after a man charged past security at the event. One Secret Service agent was shot and wounded. The CBC's Willie Lowry is in our Washington bureau. Willie, what can you tell us about this suspect?
Officials believe 31-year-old Cole Allen traveled to Washington by train from his home in Los Angeles, transiting through Chicago before arriving at the Washington Hilton, where the Correspondents' Dinner is held annually. Officials say he arrived a day or two before the event. Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche, who was at the dinner, says the investigation is ongoing, but one thing appears certain.
It does appear that he did, in fact, have set out to target folks that work in the administration, likely including the president.
There are several reports of the suspect sending notes to family members, as well as alleged online posts criticizing the current administration. U.S. President Donald Trump tells 60 Minutes that the suspect wrote a manifesto.
He's radicalized. He was a Christian, a believer, and then he became an anti-Christian, and he had a lot of change. He's been going through a lot based on what he wrote.
Authorities are said to be combing through social media for more information about the suspect.
Willie, what are we expecting at today's court appearance?
This is the first time we'll see and possibly hear from Allen since his arrest Saturday night. He's likely to face a slew of charges, including using a firearm during a crime of violence and assault on a federal officer with a dangerous weapon. According to Janine Pirro, U.S. Attorney for the District of Columbia, a Secret Service agent was shot during the incident, but he is okay. She says more charges will likely be laid.
The CBC's Willie Lowry in Washington. Thanks, Willie.
My pleasure.
Lebanon's health ministry says 14 people were killed yesterday and dozens more were wounded in Israeli airstrikes, making Sunday the deadliest day since a ceasefire between Israel and Hezbollah came into effect more than a week ago. Explosions were heard in southern Lebanon as Israel's military targeted what it says are Hezbollah sites, including rocket launchers and a weapons depot. The strikes hit several towns beyond Israel's yellow line. The IDF says it warned residents to leave ahead of the attack. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is accusing Hezbollah of dismantling the April 16th ceasefire. The Israeli military says a soldier was killed and 6 others were injured by a Hezbollah drone attack in Lebanon. Iran's foreign minister is in Russia, where he's expected to meet with President Vladimir Putin. Abbas Araghchi says he is holding consultations with Russian friends about the U.S.-Israel war on Iran. He is also blaming the U.S. for a breakdown in peace negotiations. Potential talks over the weekend were canceled by President Donald Trump. That means there's no prospect of the Strait of Hormuz reopening anytime soon. That's pushing oil prices higher today. Brent crude is up 2% to over $107 a barrel. That's the highest since both sides agreed to a ceasefire about 3 weeks ago. Prime Minister Mark Carney is expected to announce a new policy initiative later this morning. We're being told it's part of the government's goal to build Canada strong for all. The CBC's Rafi Boudjikanian is in our parliamentary bureau. Rafi, what are we likely to hear from the Prime Minister?
Christine, our colleagues at Radio-Canada have learned Prime Minister Mark Carney is announcing a new public investment fund. You can tell the Liberals want to make a big deal out of it, putting him out just a day before the spring economic update expected tomorrow. Carney will theme the announcement around, yes, building Canada strong, in keeping with some of the other branding we've seen from this government around safeguarding the country's economic sovereignty. Canadians will be able to invest into the fund and get returns on that investment, and the federal government will use the money in partnership with the private sector to build what it's been calling these big national interest projects.
And Rafi, all of this is happening as the newly minted Advisory Committee on Canada-U.S. Economic Relations meets today for the first time. What are we expecting out of that?
Well, they do have that mandate that's all about looking at what the relationship between Canada and the U.S. should look like going forward. The group itself is not completely new. Justin Trudeau, Carney's predecessor, had struck such a group, but there was a bit of a shake-up last week. Former Conservative elected officials like Lisa Raitt and Erin O'Toole are in. So is Candice Lang, the chair of the Canadian Chamber of Commerce. Former Alberta NDP Premier Rachel Notley and Labour leader Hassan Yousaf are out. The new group's meeting is coming about 2 months ahead of a deadline for Canada, the US, and Mexico to agree to a review of CUSMA, the three-way free trade deal between the countries. Now, Mexico is expected to start two-way formal talks with the US later in May, while there is no date circled on Canada's calendar yet.
All right, thanks, Rafi. Rafi Boudjikanian in Ottawa.
You're welcome.
A Winnipeg man is stuck at a detention facility being run by U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement. Clayton Herman says he and other ICE detainees often go without proper food or medical care at the processing center in California. And as the CBC's Michelle Allen reports, it's not clear when or how he'll get out.
In the Mojave Desert, behind barbed wire, Clayton Herman has spent nearly 200 days at Adelanto ICE Processing Center. It's a detention facility owned by a private prison company called Geo Group.
We are prisoners. Indefinite prisoners is what makes it worse, with no end in sight.
Herman says proper food and medical care are scarce at Adelanto. He's one of 58 Canadians in ICE detention as of March. Most detainees, like Herman, haven't been convicted of a crime. Herman moved to the U.S. 20 years ago. He says he overstayed his visa, which makes him an illegal immigrant. Then ICE took him into custody after a routine check-in. Sherry Aiken is a law professor at Queen's University. She says legally, detainees must have access to proper food and timely medical care.
And it's very clear that the U.S. is in flagrant violation of those minimum standards.
Congresswoman Norma Torres visits Adelanto every week to advocate for detainees. She says the inhumane conditions are intentional.
It's part of the mental trauma that they are being put through to force them to self-deport.
4 Adelanto detainees have died since September. ICE referred questions to Geo Group. They said it provides around-the-clock access to medical care and dietitian-approved meals. Herman says he was recently denied release on bond, with no money for a lawyer and no idea when he'll get out. He says all he can do is try to survive. Michelle Allen, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Canadian travel to the U.S. has been down for more than a year. According to Statistics Canada's latest report, Canadians are digging in their heels to avoid crossing the border. But businesses in Las Vegas are betting at-par deals can convince some to return. Sophia Harris reports.
That means $1 Canadian equals $1 US. No exchange rate, all the fun.
3 downtown Las Vegas resorts are trying to woo back Canadians with at-par pricing. The resort's owner, Derek Stevens, says the offer sends Canadians a strong message.
We miss you and we want you to come back to Las Vegas.
But it may take more than deals to reverse the continued drop in Canadian travelers to the United States. March marked the 14th consecutive month of steep declines. Canadian return trips to the U.S. plummeted 32% that month compared to March 2024, when the U.S. travel boycott had yet to take hold.
It's just a scary place that the U.S. is becoming right now.
Bruce Newman lives close to the U.S. border in Fredericton. He's boycotting U.S. travel due to President Donald Trump's trade war and comments about Canada becoming the 51st state. Newman says he and his wife won't return without political change.
Definitely, while Trump's in office, we're not interested in going to the States at all.
Another lingering problem for the U.S. tourism industry, some boycotters are changing their travel habits. Last year, fewer Canadians traveled to the U.S., but overseas trips rose by 9%, and domestic tourism spending increased by 2.5%. The Iran war, which is driving up jet fuel prices, could further spur domestic tourism.
And enjoy the at-par hotel rate at check-in.
However, casino owner Stevens is betting that even in a political trade war, at-par deals will be worth the gamble. Sophia Harris, CBC News, Toronto.
And that is the latest national and international news from World Report. For news anytime, go to cbcnews.ca. I'm Christine Birak. This is CBC News.
Good morning, Manitoba. You're listening to Information Radio here on CBC Radio 1, 89.3 FM, 990 AM, and everywhere on the CBC Manitoba YouTube page. I'm Corey Funk, in for Marcy Marcusa. I'm stumbling over my words because there's just so much news that happened over the weekend. We're going to get you caught up on it, and there's also lots of news to come this week as well. Particularly King Charles and Queen Camilla arrive in the United States today to their first official state visit as King and Queen. We're going to hear about what the UK hopes to achieve with this show of soft power. Also, the Carney government is about to give a snapshot of government spending and economic policy. It's releasing the so-called spring fiscal report tomorrow, so we're going to hear more about what to expect on that. But first, though, a lot of talk happening the last couple of months, more than usual, about time zones, as those western provinces are looking to change theirs. And, well, it actually not change at all anymore. One Manitoban has decided to change his clock every day and now lives in his own time zone. That changes with the sunrise. So that conversation coming up just ahead. Also on the show, I just want to remind folks that the big news provincially that broke over the weekend, Wabkanu announcing a ban. We're going to get more details on that on social media. We're going to be talking about that all throughout the show. Stay tuned for that. Right now, though, 6:11, let's touch base with Heather Wells with a look at news headlines.
Well, some Winnipeg teens are pushing back against the province's plan to ban social media and AI chatbots for young people under the age of 16. 15-year-old Gabriel Tapper-Goldsman says any restriction should be aimed at younger teens and kids. He says older teens should be able to work with their parents to choose how they use social media. Some parents tell CBC they're happy with the pledge to ban kids 16 and under from social media and AI chatbots. If this is approved, Manitoba becomes the first province in Canada to implement such a ban. We'll hear more about it. As well, a Winnipeg-born man is going on 200 days in an ICE detention center. Clayton Herman moved to the U.S. 20 years ago, overstaying his visa, making him an illegal immigrant. He is now in the Adelanto ICE Processing Center in California. We'll hear about that in our next local news coming up at 6:30.
Thank you very much, Heather.
Thank you.
That is Heather Wells at your CBC News desk. Abby Adeyemi is in with a look at your weather this morning. Hello.
Hey, Corey. We are talking about another week starting with noticeable temperature contrast across the province. You know, while we're seeing the southern regions seeing temperatures slightly above that freezing mark with cloudy skies, the northern areas we're seeing sub-zero temperatures with active winter conditions, including moderate snowfall as you go towards the northern part of the province around to Dooley Lake. In the Red River Valley region this morning, forecast for Winnipeg and nearby brings this overcast conditions we're seeing. We're going to see our highs get close to 10 degrees as conditions begin to clear later in the day. However, current temperatures, we're looking at it near 3 degrees at the Forks and even at the airport, with morning temperatures climbing from this 3 degrees close to 6 later. Then we get to those double digits around the afternoon period. And similar conditions we're seeing across the southern regions. Temperatures starting between -2 to -1 at this time, tracking it from Brandon all the way down to Dauphin. And this will stay overcast today with highs climbing towards 10 degrees in most of these regions. While up north, we're seeing temperatures between -4 and -10 with light snow and fog patches and some freezing rain in the mix from the Par towards Churchill. Highs for the regions will only hit -1 later. So expect this overcast skies to stay through the period for most of the regions, with clearing conditions slowly moving into the far north later tonight. So Winnipeg right now, we're kind of near 3 degrees with these cloudy conditions and light breeze, and we warm up close to 10 degrees by the afternoon period.
Thank you very much, Abby.
Thank you.
That is Abby Adeyemi, and Sierra Sanders is in with a look at your commute. Hello.
Hi, Corey. Got an early morning call from George just before the news there. He was mentioning that on Des Moines and Provencher, at the train tracks there, the arms are down and the lights are flashing, but there is no train. Yeah, so a little bit of a sticky situation there if you are heading east or west there on Des Moines, or on Provencher there. But where Des Moines and Provencher meet there, and the train tracks, the arms are down and the lights are flashing, but there is no train. And George did mention that on the west side of Provencher, there are police blocking some lanes there. Don't know exactly what that situation there is, but we'll keep an eye on that throughout the morning to see if anything happens with that. It is quite early, so we said there's no backups quite yet, but I will keep an eye on that to see how that situation progresses throughout the morning and if anything new happens with that. That being said, though, if there is something that is getting in your way out there, or you have an update on this situation I just chatted about, you can give me a call on the CBC commuter line. That number is 204-788-3093.
Well, it's 6:15 a.m. right now here in Winnipeg, but for Hardy Greening, it's about 7:03 a.m. if my calculations are correct. Since the beginning of April, he's decided to go the opposite of what a lot of Western provinces are doing. Instead, he's decided to live in his own personal time zone, which changes every day depending on the sunrise. And he joins us now to talk about it. Good morning.
Good morning.
So how does your own personal time zone work? Just like kind of catch us up to this really complicated but kind of interesting way of living.
Well, yes, it is complicated, and you are correct. I live in my own zone.
The reason why I picked this particular time is because on April 4th, the sun rose at 7 a.m., and I felt that was the perfect time for the sun to rise. So every morning I adjust my clocks to 7 a.m. at sunrise. So you're correct. Right now, my time on my cell phone is showing 7:04.
Right. Oh, so you actually have it set on your cell phone that time. Like, how do you keep track of time? Like, how does that work? Do you have a watch, a cell phone? How does that work?
I have an analog clock that I also change at sunrise every morning, and I change my cell phone as well.
Okay. And why? I know, like you said, you liked waking up at 7, but I mean, you can also just set your alarm to wake up at 7. Why did you decide to make this a whole thing?
Well, I believe strongly that being up and watching the sunrise is something that is beneficial to my health. It always has been. I have felt the chance to make my morning coffee and sit and watch the sunrise has always given me a boost emotionally and hopefully intellectually. And also because in my distant past, my ancestors would have risen with the sun and worked during daylight hours and then retired in the dark because they weren't that prosperous that they could afford to use lamp oil in the dark. So it is natural, I believe, for us as humans to rise with the sun.
And how have you felt over this past month of doing this? Have you noticed a difference?
Well, yes. One thing is that I've noticed that nobody wants to join me in this, so that is a difference. I've also, but this is how I have lived for quite some time, because I've had the opportunity to have many different forms of employment, including I've worked in residential and commercial construction, and using the daylight hours is always important in those industries. And I feel wide awake because every sunrise, it isn't that early. It's only 7 o'clock.
But just for listeners, you're retired now, which I imagine makes this a lot more doable.
Oh, yes. It makes it more doable because then I don't have to particularly arrive at somebody else's time.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
I mean, you said a lot other people in your life don't want to do this, but how's your family feel about it? Because you're like, when you like maybe say, hey, like let's go meet for coffee or something, family and friends, and then you're like trying to calculate the time, and how does everyone around you feel about it, particularly your partner?
Yeah, exactly. That's a very good question. My partner, she's not interested in this at all because she's not a morning person. So we have been together now for 42 years, and I've enjoyed the mornings and she's enjoyed the evenings more. So she has no interest in joining me in this. Later this morning, I will be meeting a former work colleague for coffee. And so unfortunately, I'm going to be acquiescing and meet him at the time that he's saying that we're meeting. But I do carry my phone with me to point out to him what the time really is, according to me.
I'm just thinking ahead too. So your plan is to stay up at sunrise, wake up at sunrise, go to bed sunset. I'm thinking summer solstice, winter solstice. That could be kind of tricky because either means a very long day for you or a very short day for you if you're trying to like keep with the sun. Is that, have you thought that through?
No, most things I don't think through until I try and experience them. So the summer solstice won't really be a problem for me because I have no problem getting up early, and also learned we had the opportunity to live in South America for 4 years, and I learned that the rest of the world practices an afternoon nap, which works very well, and then so that sunrise to sunset works. it will be more difficult for me even now. Retiring at sunset isn't working that well for me.
Okay. And how long do you plan to pull this off for? Is this just like a year-long thing, or is you just try it out, or is this going to be your lifestyle till the end?
Well, that's another good question because it's an experiment. We'll see how long it works. My family is already tired of me talking about it. So it depends on how, like if I have lost all my friends at some point because I won't shut up about this, then I may have to rethink this. The social consequences are higher, I think, than like for myself. I can figure this out.
Sure, you feel great intellectually. You're at your peak, but just no friends. Is it worth it? We'll find out, I guess. Hey.
Yes, exactly.
Well, Hardy, thank you so much for joining us this morning to talk about it. I know you just woke up now, so you get your morning coffee, and appreciate your time. And we'll maybe check in maybe around winter solstice to see how your very short days are going.
That sounds great.
Okay, cheers. Have a good one.
Have a good morning.
Hardy Greening lives in his very own time zone. I wish I could wake up at 7 a.m. every morning. I have to wake up at 4 when my alarm goes off. Well, maybe one day when I retire too. Well, coming up next here on Information Radio, it is 6:22 in real Winnipeg Central Time. And tomorrow, the Carney government is releasing its spring fiscal update, giving Canadians a better idea of how the government is stewarding the economy. So what's it spending on? What's it cutting? What is its strategy for weathering tough economic challenges from the Iran war? For more, we're joined by Colin Mang. He's an economics professor at McMaster University, and he's joined us this morning from Toronto. Hello.
Oh, thanks for having me again.
Well, thanks for joining us. So what are the big headlines you're expecting in this update or mini budget, as it's also called?
Well, I mean, the main challenge Canada continues to face is affordability. So housing has gotten a bit cheaper over the past year, but it's still too expensive in many parts of the country. We've got food prices that continue to grow faster than the general rate of inflation. And on top of that, we now have this international oil crisis, which is pushing up the cost of gasoline and diesel fuel. So I expect the federal finance minister, François-Philippe Champagne, tomorrow to spend a good portion of his speech talking about affordability issues and what the government can do about that. But on top of that, there's also issues of international trade and the government's strategy to diversify international trade. There's also the issue of the major infrastructure projects the government wants to see built. So last week, the government approved the expansion of the Enbridge pipeline in British Columbia to export more natural gas. They also broke ground earlier this month on the new Port of Montreal expansion. So there's quite a lot going on already. I think they're going to talk more about that as well tomorrow.
And what will the federal government, want to message about its spending strategy, you think?
Yeah, so I mean, they have spent quite a bit over the past year. So there's an extra $30 billion for the military. That's brought us up to the 2% of GDP target that NATO has sent for us. There's also the expansion to the GST HST credits. They're rebranding that as the grocery and essentials benefit. It's going to cost $3.1 billion this year. It's a $12.4 billion over 6 years to put more money into the pockets of Canadian families and try to deal with some of those affordability issues. I think the government's going to talk quite a bit about spending in those areas. Now, one thing to note is that we just got the latest figures for February. And looking at April to February, the 2025-26 fiscal year, the federal government's deficit's only been about $25.5 billion, which is substantially less than they had expected back in November. So they're in a much better fiscal position than they thought they would be in. The final deficit's looking to come in probably somewhere around 28 to 30 billion. So that gives the government a bit more fiscal room than they originally thought they had to deal with some of these affordability issues.
That's interesting because also I know Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre released a letter over the weekend demanding that the Prime Minister cap the federal deficit at $31 billion. As you mentioned there, seems like it might not get up to that, at least at this point in the fiscal cycle. But how realistic is that request, do you think, in the long term?
Yeah, so I mean, back in November, the government was expecting that for the current 26-27 fiscal year, the deficit would be about 65 billion. Given the updated figures, it now does look like it'll be somewhat less than that. I mean, basically what the Conservatives are asking for when they're picking this figure of 31 billion is they're asking the government to just sort of hold the course on what they're spending. Not have any new large spending packages over the coming year that would drive up the deficit further, because it actually now does look like the government will come in around that $30 billion mark. Now, whether the government takes that advice or not is a different question. One of the things the Conservatives are asking for is for the federal government to cancel the high-speed rail project from Toronto to Quebec City. It's a project the government has put on its list of major projects. They've also made it a key part of their election platform last year, as well as their governing platform now that they're in office. So I don't think they're going to be willing to scrap that project going forward. We'll have to see what the government does. But again, given that the deficit does look like it's going to be lower than originally expected in November, they've got some extra fiscal room. We'll see what they do with it.
And you know, what might the fiscal update tell us about measures to help low-income Canadians and the middle class, and how helpful really are these measures, you know, in the short term?
Yeah, I think the big one is the grocery and essentials benefit. So that's that rebranded GST HST credit. For this year, the government is expanding the payout by 50%. For a family of four, it's going to be an extra $800 that you're going to receive, which is quite a lot of money. So the government is doing quite a bit in that aspect. It's also going to expend further the 25% bonus for the next 5 years afterwards. So that's really a major feature of the government's plan to tackle affordability. They're likely to also talk about the increase in free dental care in Canada. So a couple of years ago, there were only about 3.6 million Canadians who were eligible for dental care. That's now up to 6.5 million who have registered for it. So they've nearly doubled the number of people eligible for the free federal dental care program. That's a really big benefit for seniors as well as for lower income Canadian families. So, I mean, these are the kinds of things the government's really going to highlight, I think, tomorrow, talking about ways that they're trying to reduce costs for average Canadian families.
And one of the way I know the government is trying to reduce costs is actually, you know, cuts to the federal civil service. What might we find out about that tomorrow, you think?
Yeah, the government's plan is to cut 15,000 members of the federal civil service, again, to try to reduce that deficit figure that they have. They've got 68,000 civil servants eligible for for early retirement, and 4,600 of those have already accepted the early retirement package. So with those voluntary exits, that actually gets them almost a third of their way towards their goal, which is quite significant progress given that they've only just rolled this out over the past few months. They've given themselves a 3-year target to make 15,000 cuts. I think they will talk about that tomorrow, but they're almost a third of their way towards that goal in just a few months through voluntary exits. I'm sure they will give us some update on that, but that is one of the ways that they're looking to trim that budget deficit, is to trim the federal payrolls.
We'll also look out for tomorrow. Colin, thanks for your time. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Colin Mang is an assistant professor of economics at McMaster University. 6:29 right now, and still to come here on Information Radio, a high-stakes trial between Elon Musk and OpenAI CEO Sam Altman is set to begin today. So we're going to get the details from that in your business report. If you have anything going on the commute, if you see anything, you can give us a call on the commuter line, 204-788-3093. Nothing major to report just quite yet. We'll get an update shortly. But right now, time for your CBC Winnipeg News.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. A cool start to the last week of April in Winnipeg. We will see a mix of sun and clouds this afternoon, a strong northwest wind, keeping our high down to 9 today. Mixed feelings from some Manitoba kids about the province's plans to clamp down on how young people access the digital world. 10-year-old Kais Abu Jabal agrees with the province's plan to ban AI chatbots, but not so much with the province's plan to ban social media for kids under the age of 16. Abu Jabal says social media plays an important role in the world, even at his age. He says a ban for youth could impact his friendships.
Kids and people, they mostly socialize with their friends online on these specific apps. So if they got banned, it would be a bit harder for them to socialize. But I mean, they can't go outside, talk with them, but sometimes people are far away.
Abu Jabal says young people should be communicating with humans, not AI chatbots. Now, the Canadian Centre for Child Protection is standing by Manitoba's decision to ban children from social media. The charity says tens of thousands of children have been victimized on these platforms for years, and age restrictions are needed. Now, this ban is also resonating with some parents in Winnipeg, including Noor Hamdam, who has 2 children.
There's a lot of things on social media like inappropriate for kids, and we as family and busy parents, I think we cannot keep up with everything kids see on social media.
The head of Manitoba's biggest school division backs the province's promise to ban social media for young people. Matt Henderson at the Winnipeg School Division says young people need to be protected.
In my travels throughout my neighborhood and my school division, children often will identify screens, social media, phones themselves as problematic and invasive in their lives.
Henderson says there is some urgency to enacting the ban, but he wants the province to take the time it needs to consult educators, parents, and children. The provincial government has not said when this ban will be rolled out. Lawmakers in Nova Scotia, Quebec, and Saskatchewan are also considering the idea. You can hear more on this story throughout the morning right here on Information Radio. You can also find out more at cbc.ca/Manitoba. A Winnipeg man is stuck in indefinite ICE detention. Clayton Herman says detainees often go without proper food and medical care at Adelanto ICE Processing Center in California. CBC I-Team's Michelle Allen reports.
Former Winnipegger Clayton Herman has spent nearly 200 days in ICE detention. The Adelanto Processing Center is owned by private prison company Geo Group, operating on behalf of ICE.
We are prisoners. Indefinite prisoners is what makes it worse, with no end in sight.
Herman is one of 58 Canadians in ICE detention as of March. Most detainees, like Herman, haven't been convicted of a crime. Herman says it's hard to get access to proper food and timely medical care at Adelanto. 4 Adelanto detainees have died since September. Herman went to the U.S. 20 years ago and says he overstayed his visa, which makes him an illegal immigrant. Then ICE took him into custody after a routine check-in as his case worked its way through immigration court. Sherry Aiken is a law professor at Queen's University.
It's the not knowing. Effectively, detention becomes indefinite, right? Because you don't have a clear indication of when you're going to be released. And that in and of itself is its own kind of torture.
Herman says he was recently denied release on bond, with no money for a lawyer and no idea when he'll get out. He says all he can do is try to survive the day ahead. Michelle Allen, CBC News, Winnipeg.
U.S. President Donald Trump is recounting in detail the moment gunfire rang out Saturday night. He gave an interview to the CBS program 60 Minutes last night, describing how the U.S. Secret Service protected him at the White House Correspondents' Dinner.
And they said, please go down on the floor. So I went down, and First Lady went down also, but we were asked to go down by the agents.
The suspect, Cole Allen, appears in a U.S. federal court today. You can hear the latest on that story and other national and international news coming up on World Report at 7. Charges have been stayed against a former RCMP constable accused of stealing hundreds of dollars from someone's vehicle. Ben Harder resigned from the force last year while he was under investigation. It stemmed from an alleged incident in Portage la Prairie in November 2024. A person claimed Harder stole roughly $300 from their vehicle during a traffic stop. A spokesperson for the Crown tells CBC News there's no reasonable likelihood of conviction in this case because the complainant has since left Canada and prosecutors can't find him. Well, runners took their dogs to Assiniboine Park yesterday for some possum causes. The 5th in-person fun and furry dog run raises money for Dog Rescue Canine Advocates Manitoba. This year, about 450 families took part running or walking with their four-legged friends, 5 or 10 kilometers. Red Javier ran 5K with his yellow lab, Hugo.
Well, a lot of dogs running together with us, and it's fun. It's really fun.
The event's hosted by Manitoba Marathon and sponsored by Manitoba Hydro. You can find the latest news updated throughout the day at cbc.ca/Manitoba.
I heard things tend to get a little rough around K9 or so. Haha, see what I did there?
Hilarious.
Thank you.
Good for a Monday morning.
Yes, right. I'm feeling. I had 1 cup of coffee to see what I could do with 2. Just wait.
I'm excited.
Thank you very much, Heather.
Thank you.
That's Heather Wells at your CBC News desk. Actually saw those runners going by. I was at the zoo yesterday. We saw them like, oh yeah, there's a dog run going on. There was a big beautiful tiger there. And then my little girl looked over and she was like, oh, doggy. I was like, yeah, that's what she was excited about. Well, you're listening to Information Radio here on CBC Radio 1. I'm Corey Funk, in for Marcy Marcusa. And Abby Adiemi is in with a look at your forecast. Good morning.
Yeah, good morning, Corey. The province actually waking up to cloudy stats. You know, the week starting with this cool northern winds. You will feel it if you step outside this morning. And some lingering flurries in the northern part of the province. No warnings, though, but the south were hovering near 9 degrees later in the day. And for up north, we're seeing scattered flurries and a risk of freezing drizzle. For the Red River Valley region, at this time, forecast for Winnipeg and nearby, it's starting cloudy. We're going to see a mix of sun and clouds this afternoon. Current temperatures around 2 degrees at the Forks and the airports, near 4 degrees with some gusty north winds, making it feel cooler than expected. So we will warm up to close to 10 degrees later, but you will notice that cool northern winds are hitting your face. Across the southern regions, in the Pembina Valley region, tracking temperatures from Morden towards Portage la Prairie this morning. We're looking at 1 degree, 2 degrees, depending on where you are. Cloudy start. There's a slim chance of morning showers in that part of the province. We will see highs around 9 degrees. While in the Westman region, from Brandon towards Nipawin, we're seeing temperatures around -1 with a cloudy start. Your high gets to 8 degrees later in the day. For the Parkland region, from Dauphin towards Russell and Roblin, also around -1 there, you only get to 6 degrees later in the day. In the Interlake region, Gimli, good morning. You're near 1 at this time. Cloudy and gusty north winds. Your highs also gets close to 10 degrees. Then we track it into the central and the northern part of the province. The Par, Flin Flon, both regions are mainly clear, between 4 and 5 degrees at this time. There's a slim chance of flurries later in the day before you warm to 2 degrees. Around Norway House, it's currently -5 and clear. Highs of 3 degrees, a slim chance of afternoon showers in the forecast also there. Thompson, Lynn Lake, Gillam, all these areas seeing light snow at this time. Some areas sporting cloudy conditions on and off. Temperatures between -2 and -6. You warm to 2 degrees later in the day. Then we go further into Tudula Lake, where it's more of a light snow falling there. -7 at this time. You warm to -4 under some breezy northwest winds. Churchill and the York region, we're tracking -6 with freezing fog there. Highs would only get to -1 later in the day, so there's a good chance of more flurries in the forecast as the temperature falls to -9 by tomorrow. So in summary, Corey, it's more like a mix of sun and clouds and a cool breeze across the province today. For Winnipeg, we're expecting a high. We might get to 10, but I see 9 degrees in the forecast here, with current temperature sitting at 2 degrees.
Thank you very much, Abby.
Thank you.
That's Abby Adiemi behind the glass. Sierra Sanders, last we spoke, there was a ghost train. Is that still a problem?
No, that's actually not. Got a call from Zach, actually. He said that intersection of Desmirons and Provencher is open now. The lights are green now through that intersection. But the arms of the
train crossing.
The train crossing, thank you. It's still early. The train crossing, the arms are up, but the lights are still flashing. So basically, the lights are on, but no one's home.
Oh,
if you want to look at
spooky.
it that way. Spooky, the ghost train. Maybe there's still remnants of it. I don't know. He did mention that rail crews are there looking to get that issue cleared up, though, but you are able to move through that train crossing there now. So thank you so much for that update, Zach. But if you want to give me a call about something you're seeing out there, you can give me a call. That number is 204-788-3093.
Thank you very much, Sierra. That is Sierra Sanders, our studio director here at CBC. Up next here, Crystal Ramlakan is here with the Business Report. Good morning. So oil prices are up today as peace talks between the U.S. and Iran stalled over the weekend. So what's the latest there?
Well, two Middle Eastern officials say Iran is now offering to end its chokehold over the Strait of Hormuz without addressing its nuclear program, though. So the proposal passed to the U.S. by Pakistan also includes a request for the U.S. to end its blockade of Iran. Now, U.S. President Donald Trump is unlikely to support the proposal as he wants Iran's nuclear program ended as part of a broader deal to end the war. And the standoff continues to affect global oil prices and trade. So over the weekend, Brent crude went up to over $107 a barrel, and that's the highest price since both sides agreed to a ceasefire about 3 weeks ago. Right now, it's sitting at about $106, and around 20,000 workers on hundreds of vessels are stuck in the Persian Gulf, unable to cross the strait. So some crews have been stranded for about 8 weeks and have faced shortages of food and water. And the International Maritime Organization has called for a safe corridor, but most ships remain stranded.
And we're also going to be hearing more about how the war is affecting our economy this week, right?
Yes, that's right. So the Bank of Canada officials are set to give more details about how the war is affecting the central bank's forecasts for inflation and the economy when it makes its next interest rate announcement this Wednesday. So the Bank of Canada is widely expected to keep its benchmark interest rate unchanged. And economists predict the bank will also lay out a handful of scenarios for how inflation might progress depending on how long this conflict in the Middle East lasts. So the central bank will also get an update on the status of fiscal policy when the federal government tables its spring economic statement tomorrow. And before that happens, Radio Canada has learned the government will announce the creation of the Strong Canada Fund later today. So Ottawa intends to create an investment vehicle to finance major projects of national interest in partnership with the private sector. And Canadians will be able to contribute and benefit from a return on their investment. But details regarding the terms and extent of potential returns are not yet known.
Oh, super interesting. So next up here, let's change the gears a little bit. A high-stakes trial between Elon Musk and OpenAI CEO Sam Altman is set to begin today. So what details do you have on that?
So, Corey, this is really the culmination of a years-long friends to enemies arc that could reconfigure the AI landscape. So Musk, an OpenAI co-founder, is accusing Altman and OpenAI president Greg Brockman of breaking their vow to keep the ChatGPT maker as a nonprofit. And Musk claims OpenAI manipulated him out of millions of dollars in donations by promising to develop AI more safely than profit-driven tech giants like Google and Microsoft. And Microsoft, OpenAI's main partner, is also named in this lawsuit. So OpenAI says Musk's accusations are baseless and motivated by jealousy, regret for walking away from OpenAI, and a desire to derail a competing company. So Musk left OpenAI's board in 2018 after failing to convince other founders to fold the AI startup into Tesla, which, of course, as we know, is another company that he owns. And then in 2023, Musk started his own company, XAI. So Musk is demanding more than $100 billion in damages, and he says he'd give the money to OpenAI's nonprofit arm. He also wants the removal of Altman and Brockman and the reversal of OpenAI's recent for-profit restructuring. And if Musk prevails, it could hurt OpenAI right as it's racing XAI to an IPO, handing a win to Musk's AI startup and also potentially to other companies like Google, Anthropic, and China's DeepSeek.
And finally here, a new box office record for biopics was set this weekend.
Yes, that's right. So the new biopic of Michael Jackson opened to an estimated $217 million in worldwide sales. So here in Canada and the U.S., the movie posted the biggest ever opening for a biopic. And despite largely negative reviews from critics who have called the film superficial, audiences flocked to see the take on Jackson's early career. So Michael cost about $150 million to produce, and Jackson's estate funded tens of millions of dollars in reshoots after realizing a legal settlement the singer signed with a boy who accused him of sexual misconduct forbid them from commercializing his story. So the film now ends in the late 1980s before the emergence of accusations which Jackson denied. So Lionsgate and Universal have been preparing to make a sequel dealing with the rest of the singer's life if this film is a success. And Michael is the latest in a string of big budget bets that have paid off at the box office this year, including Project Hail Mary and the Super Mario Galaxy movie. And domestic movie ticket sales are up 14% from last year, but they are still 18% below where they were at this point in 2019, as people are still going to the movies less than they did before the pandemic.
Thanks, Crystal.
Thanks, Corey.
That's Crystal Ramlakan with your business news. Well, next up here on Information Radio, Secret Service agents evacuated U.S. President Donald Trump from yet another incident of gun violence on Saturday. The shooting took place at the annual White House Correspondents' Dinner. The suspect, identified as 31-year-old Cole Thomas Allen, allegedly burst through a security checkpoint towards the hotel banquet room where Trump and members of his cabinet were located. Gunshots rang out as guests prepared for the meal. No one was seriously injured, and the suspect is in police custody. The CBC's Washington correspondent, Paul Hunter, was at that dinner and described the experience.
We were right at the door, just inside the doors where outside and around the corner those gunshots were fired. It was so loud and so unexpected. I mean, the security around that thing last night, because the president was there, take the taxi to the hotel, can't get anywhere near it, have to walk. When you approach the hotel, where's your ticket? When you get up near the hotel door, where's your ticket? When you get to the hotel door, where's your ticket? Go inside down the escalator. Can you get here? Do you have the ticket? Yes. Then there's the magnometers before you get in the room. All of this expected because it's the president. And then as we sat down, as the event was just beginning, hubbub, waiting for the show to really kick in, and then those gunshots. Shortly after that, after things settled, I turned on my iPhone and sort of just tried to describe what I was seeing once things had settled. Here's a little bit of that.
I don't even know what's happening here. The room now is on a kind of, it's on lockdown. All we heard, we were sitting over here, you see just over my shoulder, sort of that table over there. And just as the thing was getting underway, like a loud pop, 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 gunshots, and like everybody hit the floor, having no idea what was going on.
At first, I thought, is this like some bad taste skit? Because it seemed so unreal that such a thing could happen in a place where the president of the United States was. But then you realize, no. People started shouting, shooter, shooter, get down, get down. So everybody's like ducking under tables, chairs are flying. I'm hiding behind a big concrete pillar. And all you're thinking is, will shooters now come through that door and start spraying the room? Like, you're really thinking this. Is there another person in this? If somebody got that close, is somebody in the room now with a gun? And then when things settled, right, the first word was that the guy was shot and killed. That didn't turn out to be true. But as things settled, doors are all closed in the ballroom. I look up, Trump's gone, long gone, and all you see are Secret Service agents streaming in from all corners of the room, and you're thinking, how could there even be so many of them? And they're rushing toward all the cabinet secretaries at the front. And then things settled and we're in lockdown for an hour. But like to experience that, it underlines the surreality of the whole thing. Again, the President of the United States was in the room, this highly securitized room, and yet that happened. In truth, it underlines that this is the kind of stuff that happens in this country. Consider the previous assassination attempts on Donald Trump. Consider this was the Hilton Hotel in Washington where Reagan was shot, right? Consider that also among those politicos in the crowd was RFK Jr., whose dad was shot and killed at a political event in Los Angeles, whose uncle was shot and killed in Dallas in 1963, right? When the cabinet secretaries were being marched out of the room, they were being pushed right by our table because we were by the main door. There goes Kash Patel. Well, there goes Steve Scalise, the Republican Majority House Leader, who himself was shot famously at that baseball game, that political baseball game in D.C. about a decade ago. This is what happens in a country where there are 400 million guns and 360 million people. Trump himself said it's a dangerous gig being a national leader in this country, and he's not wrong.
That was CBC's Washington correspondent Paul Hunter, who was at the White House Correspondents' Dinner when the gunmen stormed the venue. Acting U.S. Attorney General Todd Blanche says the suspect will be formally charged in federal court on Monday, that's today, with assault of a federal officer and use of a firearm during a crime of violence. He could face more indictments later as investigations continue. You can hear more of that conversation with Paul Hunter on today's episode of Front Burner. You can find that wherever you get your podcasts. Well, 6:51 right now. We're actually going to stay in the United States right now for the royal visit, which actually also starts with in the wake of those security concerns. King Charles and Queen Camilla are arriving today in the U.S. for their first official state visit as king and queen. The trip is going ahead despite security concerns after an attempted shooting at Saturday's White House Correspondents' Dinner, as mentioned. It's a 4-day visit to celebrate the 250th anniversary of American independence from British rule, and Britain is deploying the royal mystique in hopes of improving their relationship with the Trump administration. King Charles, if you're wondering, has visited Manitoba 4 times, of course, when he was Prince Charles. Well, for more, we're joined by Matthew Lebo, political science professor at Western University, and he is in London, Ontario. Good morning.
Good morning.
So no one was harmed during Saturday's shooting incident, as we just heard, but how will this event change the tone of the king's visit to Washington?
I wouldn't expect it to change the tone very much. The Americans really don't want events like this to change an official state visit. The security will certainly be stronger. Maybe a couple of events will change a little bit, but I don't expect there to be very much in terms of what the discussions are about.
So with those security concerns aside, why has this visit been controversial in the British media?
Well, Trump's been really critical of Britain, of Keir Starmer, of NATO for their lack of support for his war in Iran. He's been dismissive of his need for help and pretty insulting. He said that NATO allies, including British troops, stayed a little back, a little off the front lines in Afghanistan, which is pretty awful when so many British soldiers died in Afghanistan trying to protect American interests and to support their American ally. And of course, Donald Trump's, unpopular the world over and in the United States. And so having the king and queen go over there, fawn over him, buff him up as he really loves the royal family. Yeah, that gets a lot of people angry.
So then what do you think is the argument then for the king and queen to go to the U.S. then, despite these pitfalls?
Yeah, this is the king's job. He's the head of state. He's not the head of government. He goes where the government sends him. This is an official visit. He was invited last year. The king and queen were invited last year, and to cancel it at this point, that would be a big deal. He can perhaps smooth things over. He's not going to, work on any major policies or trade deals or diplomatic relations, but there's a long-term relationship between these two countries. It has to stay on track as best as possible. And the king's in a really good position to do that, to try and keep Donald Trump as happy as he can be, perhaps have him be distracted and move on to other places around the world for him to take an interest in and to, muck things up somewhere else.
You mentioned that long relationship there. Of course, what's interesting is that they're there to, as mentioned, celebrate 250 years since the U.S. left. It almost seems like a strange thing for Britain to be there to to help celebrate. But since that 250 years ago, when the U.S. left after the Revolutionary War, just remind us of how much that relationship has changed since then, and what that bond now looks like.
Sure, the War of Independence was against King George, who was King Charles's fifth over great-grandfather. But, bygones are bygones. The two countries last fought a war in 1812 when, Canada was fighting as well. So, it's a long, long history. And in the last over 100 years, the two countries fought two world wars together. They fought together in Korea, in Kuwait, in Afghanistan. They have an incredibly close trading relationship. And the United States is, of course, the key country in NATO. And with a NATO that doesn't have the United States in it, really has a different role for the United Kingdom. And so that's an important relationship to try and, if not mend permanently, at least try and keep Donald Trump from attacking NATO too badly.
So what do you think, once King Charles does arrive here and Queen Camilla, what will people be watching for in the interactions between Trump and the royals?
Donald Trump just loves the royal family, and he will be very flattered to have them come. Probably the king will give a speech to a joint session of Congress that won't be too political, but might give some nudges about democratic threats or about the environment, or about help for Ukraine. There'll be speeches at a state dinner tonight. Donald Trump is sure to say something that's either insulting or awful one way or another, and we'll see how the king reacts to that. But really, King Charles has had his whole life preparing to be as apolitical as he can be and as subtle as he can be. And this is probably pretty low stakes, and that kind of diplomatic disasters is unlikely to happen.
And finally here, what might British Prime Minister Keir Starmer and the British government be hoping to achieve, by this visit?
Perhaps the best case might be some help from the U.S. For Ukraine. But really, just to sort of remind Donald Trump of that special relationship, and as he, is distracted and looks around for what's next, that he's easier on the UK, perhaps on some Commonwealth countries, even Canada. But thinking beyond Donald Trump, there can't be that kind of permanent rupture, especially in security relationships, even as so many countries like the UK and Canada are trying to, expand their trading relationships with other countries to rely less on the United States.
Well, Matthew, thanks for your time this morning. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Matthew Lebo is a professor in the Department of Political Science at Western University. We reached him in London, Ontario this morning. Stay tuned. Coming up after 7 o'clock, we continue the conversation about the proposed social media ban for people under 16 or 16 and under, and that includes AI chatbots as well. We also want to hear from you in the meantime. You can give us a call on the listener line. What do you think about that proposed ban for young people in Manitoba? Whether a young person or not, we want to hear from you. That number, 204-788-3205. That's 204-788-3205. Time now for news headlines with Heather Wells.
Well, some Winnipeg teens are pushing back against the province's plan to ban social media and AI chatbots for those under 16. 15-year-old Gabriel Tupper Goldsman says any restrictions should be aimed at younger teens. He says older teens like himself should be able to work with their parents to choose how they would use social media. And a former Winnipegger is going on 200 days in an ICE detention center in California. We're going to hear his story in our next local news at 7:30.
Thank you very much, Heather. Stay tuned. Commute's looking okay so far, but you can call us 204-788-3009.
On The Current.
No one sails from the Strait of Hormuz to anywhere in the world without the permission of the United States Navy.
A lot of the world's attention is pointed at the Strait of Hormuz these days. It is a choke point in the U.S. Israel-Iran war, meaning it's being used strategically to shape that war. What are the other physical and economic choke points around the world and how they're used? Coming up on The Current.
The Current with Matt Galloway. This morning at 8:37, 9:07 in Newfoundland. And on the CBC Listen app.
This is World Report. Good morning, I'm Christine Birak. The suspect in the shooting at the White House Correspondents' Dinner is expected to be formally charged today. A man stormed past security Saturday night, shooting and wounding a Secret Service agent. U.S. President Donald Trump says he wasn't scared despite being rushed to safety by agents. Cole Thomas Allen is facing several federal charges. Steve Futterman has more on the suspect and his possible motivation.
Cole Thomas Allen is expected to make his first court appearance today. But before that, federal prosecutors have indicated they are likely to file more serious charges against the 31-year-old suspect. Officials are uncovering new information about Allen. One concerns how he got from his home in California to Washington, D.C. Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche.
We believe that he traveled by train from Los Angeles to Chicago and then from Chicago to Washington, D.C.
Allen, likely carrying weapons with him, may have used the train to avoid having to go through much tougher airport security. It suggests that Allen may have carefully planned out his attack. We also know that this past weekend, Allen was staying at the Washington Hilton. This may have allowed him easier access to most parts of the hotel. Officials believe new security protocols are likely to come. A.T. Smith is a former Deputy Secret Service Director. Hotels, he says, do present complications.
It's very hard to necessarily know everything about everybody that's there, but probably one safety scenario would be to more or less lock down the hotel.
Meanwhile, we are learning more about Allen's so-called manifesto written before the attack. In it, he reportedly apologizes to friends and relatives, allegedly talks about targeting Trump administration officials, and indicates he does not expect to survive. Steve Futterman, CBC News, Los Angeles.
Lebanon's health ministry says 14 people were killed yesterday and dozens more were wounded in Israeli airstrikes, making Sunday the deadliest day since a ceasefire between Israel and Hezbollah came into effect more than a week ago. Explosions were heard in southern Lebanon as Israel's military targeted what it says are Hezbollah sites, including rocket launchers and a weapons depot. The strikes hit several towns beyond Israel's yellow line. The IDF says it warned residents to leave ahead of the attack. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is accusing Hezbollah of dismantling the April 16th ceasefire. The Israeli military says a soldier was killed and 6 others were injured by a Hezbollah drone attack in Lebanon. Oil prices are rising today as peace talks between the U.S. and Iran stalled over the weekend. Brent crude is up 2% to over $107 a barrel. That's the highest price since both sides agreed to a ceasefire about 3 weeks ago. On Saturday, Donald Trump canceled talks expected to take place in Pakistan. The U.S. president says too much time is being wasted traveling. He says Iran can call anytime it wants. Mark Carney's government provides its spring economic update tomorrow. After a year of big-ticket promises from the Prime Minister, Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre is demanding the deficit be capped at $31 billion. It was projected to hit $65 billion last year. But as Karina Roman reports, many economists are expecting the revised deficit will be slightly smaller.
When Canadians work together, choose one another, we can build anything.
That's Finance Minister François-Philippe Champagne in a clearly feel-good video message posted Sunday, ahead of his spring fiscal update to be tabled tomorrow. An update many predict will have some good news in it, a deficit number lower than what was projected in last fall's budget, but probably not low enough for Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre.
We all thought that it was impossible for anyone to spend more recklessly than Liberal Justin Trudeau. And then along came Mark Carney and said, hold my champagne.
Sahir Khan is Executive Vice President at the Institute of Fiscal Studies and Democracy at the University of Ottawa. He says that a combination of a more resilient economy, higher revenues, and delayed spending is likely behind a smaller deficit number. But he wants to see transparency about progress made or not on the past year's announcements.
Give us an update on how things are progressing and what else does it take to actually deliver on the commitments the government made to Canadians.
That's a long list. Housing, natural resource projects, trade diversification, foreign investment, to name a few. And improving affordability for Canadians. High expectations for Tuesday's fiscal update. Karina Roman, CBC News, Ottawa.
Mali's defense minister has died from injuries sustained in a weekend attack.
Le gouvernement de la transition du Mali.
A government spokesperson says the assault on Sadio Kamara's home was part of a wave of attacks across Mali on Saturday, one of the largest coordinated strikes in recent years. The government blames a coalition of rebel groups, including a regional affiliate of al-Qaeda. A car bomb rammed Kamara's residence near Bamako. He fired back at the attackers and was wounded in a gunfight, dying later in hospital. Rebel groups have been carrying out attacks mostly in northern Mali since 2012. A Winnipeg man is stuck at a detention facility being run by U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement. Clayton Herman says he and other ICE detainees often go without proper food or medical care at the processing center in California. As the CBC's Michelle Allen reports, it's not clear when or how he'll get out.
In the Mojave Desert, behind barbed wire, Clayton Herman has spent nearly 200 days at Adelanto ICE Processing Center. It's a detention facility owned by a private prison company called Geo Group.
We are prisoners. Indefinite prisoners is what makes it worse, with no end in sight.
Herman says proper food and medical care are scarce at Adelanto. He's one of 58 Canadians in ICE detention as of March. Most detainees, like Herman, haven't been convicted of a crime. Herman moved to the U.S. 20 years ago. He says he overstayed his visa, which makes him an illegal immigrant. Then ICE took him into custody after a routine check-in. Sherry Aiken is a law professor at Queen's University. She says legally, detainees must have access to proper food and timely medical care.
And it's very clear that the U.S. is in flagrant violation of those minimum standards.
Congresswoman Norma Torres visits Adelanto every week to advocate for detainees. She says the inhumane conditions are intentional.
It's part of the mental trauma that they are being put through to force them to self-deport.
4 Adelanto detainees have died since September. ICE referred questions to Geo Group. They said it provides around-the-clock access to medical care and dietitian-approved meals. Herman says he was recently denied release on bond, with no money for a lawyer, and no idea when he'll get out. He says all he can do is try to survive. Michelle Allen, CBC News, Winnipeg.
King Charles and Queen Camilla begin their U.S. state visit today. The 4-day visit will be a diplomatic challenge for the royals. It comes as relations between the U.S. and United Kingdom are tense. British officials are hoping President Donald Trump's high regard for the monarchy can be turned to their advantage. Crystal Gumansing has more from London.
People are really sick and tired of our appeasement of Donald Trump, making us complicit in war crimes, but also costing ordinary British people.
Outside Buckingham Palace, Jake Atkinson and his group, the Stop Trump Coalition, stand silently playing it up for the cameras, wearing oversized masks, one of King Charles, the other President Donald Trump. Both hold a cardboard image of a bomb with the word complicit.
If this visit really was about ordinary people and benefiting the people of this country and the people of America, the King would meet with survivors of Epstein's crimes, but he is not doing so.
The King has said the law must take its course regarding the Epstein files and what they've revealed relating to his brother Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, including allegations of sexual abuse of women said to have been trafficked by the late sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. Allegations the King's younger brother denies. The visit to Virginia, New York, and Washington, D.C. also comes at a time when the political relationship between the U.S. and the U.K. has turned icy. Trump has lashed out at the U.K. for not doing enough to support the U.S. in its war with Iran. Darren Jones, the chief secretary to the Prime Minister, told the BBC the King is not being deployed to thaw relations, despite being seen as a bit of a Trump whisperer.
The King is visiting to recognise the 250th year of independence. Our relationship started with a disagreement and yet has been a strong relationship for hundreds of years ever since.
This is the King's first visit to the U.S. as monarch. Crystal Gamansing, CBC News, London.
That is the latest national and international news from World Report. From News Anytime, go to cbcnews.ca. I'm Christine Birak. This is CBC News.
Good morning, Manitoba. You're listening to Information Radio here on CBC Radio 1, 89.3 FM, 990 AM, and everywhere on the CBC Manitoba YouTube page. I'm Corey Funk, in for Marcy Marcusa. Well, the big news over the weekend, doom scrolling might be coming to a stop for young Manitobans. On Saturday, the Premier announced a plan to ban social media platforms and AI chatbots for those 16 and under. We're going to hear from parents and kids. We're also going to be speaking with an expert who said this is a good move. But we also want to hear from you because we are getting lots of mixed reaction online as well. Some people saying on Marcy's Facebook page, which she put a comment out there, that this is overreach. Some people saying that it is a good thing. So we want to hear from you. We're opening up the listener line as well, 204-788-3205, 204-788-3205. But first up this hour on the show is the war in Sudan enters its fourth year. A local Sudanese survivor says that the $120 million that Canada pledged to help is not enough. We're going to speak with him just ahead. But right now, though, let's check in with Heather Wells with a look at news headlines.
Good morning. Well, a man formerly from Winnipeg is going on 200 days in an ICE detention center in California. Clayton Herman moved to the U.S. 20 years ago. He overstayed his visa, making him an illegal immigrant. He is now in Adelanto ICE processing center with no idea of when he'll be released. Charges have been stayed against a former RCMP constable who was accused of stealing hundreds of dollars from someone's vehicle. Ben Harder resigned from the force last year while he was under investigation. We'll hear how that case played out in our next local news coming up at 7:30.
Thank you very much, Heather.
Thank you.
That's Heather Wells at your CBC News desk. Abby Adeyemi, what is going on in the weather?
Well, we're looking at a mix of spring clouds and sunshine as the southern part of the province prepares for a windy day, while up north we're still seeing this lingering flurries hold things down. Most of the regions down south warms up close to 10 degrees later today, while up north it's still going to stay around zero with those light snow across a lot of communities at this time. Winnipeg, we are looking at cloudy skies becoming a mix of sun and clouds this afternoon. Current temperatures 2 degrees at the Forks and 1 at the airport. Mostly cloudy conditions, both regions. Morning temperatures hovering around 5 degrees, 6 degrees before the strong winds would hit us later in the afternoon, gusting all the way to 50 km. For the city, we're expecting a high of 9 degrees today, falling to -4 tonight. With a sunny mix tomorrow, we'll see temperatures around 7. While up north, we have freezing fog in the Churchill region at this time with temperatures around -5. So it's more like a breezy but fair spring day with clouds in the south and light snow falling in the north. Winnipeg, 2 degrees right now. We get to 9 later.
Thank you very much, Abby. Sierra Sanders, what's going on in the commute?
Not too much, Corey. It's been a pretty quiet commute so far. This morning had one incident that cleared up pretty quickly, so not hearing about too many backups going on out there here in the city or on the highways surrounding Winnipeg here. But if that's not the case, then there's something that is getting in your way, whether you are here in Winnipeg or anywhere else in the province. Give us a call on the CBC commuter line. That number is 204-788-3093.
So, Sierra, before we get to the next item here, I do want to. We were talking before the show here. There's a bit of a generational divide here. I grew up no social media in high school. I didn't have my first smartphone until my early 20s. But you were kind of the first generation to actually have kind of smartphones in high school. Do you remember what it was like back then? When did you get your first phone?
I got my first phone when I was going into grade 9. So I was just about to turn 15 since I
Okay.
have a later birthday.
So
So
what was it? Instagram that you had on there? What was your social media
yeah,
setup?
it was pretty much, I think Instagram was the main one. And then Snapchat as well was also a pretty popular one as within my community. And then Twitter eventually too. People started hopping onto that as well.
So when you think about what social media was like for you when you were in high school versus now, what's the biggest difference of what you've seen?
I would think the biggest difference I notice is just how influencer driven now social media is, and that's why some people kind of get into social media is because they want to be an influencer. And I think we've maybe heard some younger kids in the past say, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" And some of them are saying an influencer or a streamer or something like
And
that.
that wasn't a career
That
prospect
was
for you in high school and
not.
your friends. It was
That
because it
was
was more
not.
about it wasn't the algorithm wasn't the same that it was then, right? It was more like people post.
Yeah, it was more authentic, I would
Yeah,
say.
okay.
And I think there's always this movement of people trying to make social media more authentic now, but it's not like it was 10, 15 years ago. So it's kind of interesting to see how it's kind of changed and developed over these last couple of years,
Right.
for sure.
And of course now the policies around it that are changing as well. Thanks, Sierra, because we are of course going to be talking about this next half hour a lot about that proposed social media ban for youth 16 and under, including AI chatbots as well. We're going to have some comments later on as well, but you can call us. We'll get those listener lines on. We've had a lot of mixed reactions. Some people, as I mentioned, calling this government overreach. Some people saying it's about time. We're going to hear from youth coming up as well. So you can give us a call in the meantime, though, if you have thoughts on it, which I know there are lots of thoughts out there. 204-788-3205. That's 204-788-3205. Well, next up here on Information Radio is the war in Sudan enters its fourth year. A local Sudanese survivor says his country needs more help. Last week, the federal government pledged $120 million in humanitarian assistance. Yahya Abdul Rahman says it's not enough. He fled Sudan more than 20 years ago at the age of 13, and today he is fully settled in Winnipeg with his family. Good morning.
Good morning.
So why do you think that the federal government's aid isn't enough?
Yeah, no, first of all, I do not want to say that it's not enough. Actually, I think it's the wonderful thing that Canada is taking the step for the humanitarian and help the crisis in Sudan. What I'm saying that absolutely why it's not enough, because the massive of the people that they need help. We have completely, like Khartoum had almost 15 million people living in there, and all that city is almost deserted city. So those people move to different regions in Sudan. Some of them, almost 7 million, move in Egypt. So as you see, we have a crisis that children, women, older people that cannot get enough just daily food. So as a result, this money, if you can divide it through just to the humanitarian, just to the food substance, is not enough to just delegate people's need, because the need is massive.
Yeah. And I think, like you mentioned about, 15 million people dispersed from Khartoum might be actually a new fact to a lot of people, right? We hear a lot about people being displaced, Gaza, other places, but I think to a lot of folks, Sudan isn't getting as much attention. Are there other things going on in Sudan right now that people don't know about that is not being talked about that you think should?
Oh, absolutely. I believe Sudan's issue, because Gaza started it, and then the Iran war now becomes to the highlight to the society here around the world and around the globe. So people mostly they can, which is like we call them as a forgotten war. A massive thing is happening because there is no peace that's coming to Sudan, and people's life actually gets more worse as an international community focuses on more urgent situations. So Sudan basically has been forgotten by millions of people now, still starving. They have no food, women, children, displaced individuals with no daily subsidy. People cannot even have one meal a day. So, and the government is dysfunctional government, basically, because I can say they moved to Port Sudan, but there they do not have financial capacity. whatever money they get, they use it for weapons to fight the Janjaweed militia, their enemies, fighting over the power. But the real reality, what we're talking about, as a community leader and as a Sudanese Canadian, I believe Canada is doing a wonderful job around the world, but also Canada, of course, has an obligation to take care of its own people, which is when they stand that here local. But Canada is a leader on the global sector right now when the U.S. is not doing enough to help around the globe. So we believe Canada has more rules to do. If the more funding goes to those organizations that help, can absolutely reduce the burden for individuals, especially children and women, that they do not have. And a lot of them lost their husbands throughout the world, because when the Janjaweed enter Khartoum, they focuses on killing men specifically, and it doesn't matter what gender you are, ethnicity. As long as you're a man, you're not belong to them, they will take you and they will kill you. And that's those things that are not appear publicly, because the media, either it's the government side or the Janjaweed side, they do not allow any individual to take a picture to those, only if they themselves post it. So the humanitarian crisis in Sudan is a continue to overrise, but the society has forgotten, and around the world has been forgotten a war.
And why do you think it is a forgotten war? Like you mentioned that there's the on the ground that you said like it's hard to get images of it out into the world. But do you think there's other reasons? Why do you think it is a forgotten war?
Well, absolutely. One thing I can say that because in order to have war focus, then a society, the international community to focus on is they have to be a press freedom. There is no press freedom. And the NGOs, they don't feel safe to go there because the government has not giving them enough protection to go and do their regular jobs. So this also becomes another obstacle. Another obstacle, of course, the international community is worrying about the urgent stuff. And also Africa is always putting beside, and just not Sudan, complete continent of Africa. When there is a conflict, when this first started, the international community, well, I'll give you an example. In Darfur, when the war started in 2003, the whole world talks about it, they call it genocide. And now it's a forgotten genocide. And don't forget, millions of Darfurians now, they're living under the Janjaweed and completely to die. Rape is continuously happening daily, but nobody's talking about it. So this crisis now, when it started in April 15, 2023, so continuously we have more suffering, but everybody's forgotten about it. I actually appreciate Canada that's plunging in. I hope other European countries and other countries also have rules to play at the humanitarian sector so they can help this crisis and to put more attention, more light, and even to bring peace. It's one of the most important to put pressure to the government and the Janjaweed group to come to the one peace agreement so then we can have a stable region. And that's not just a stable region for Sudan. No, it's a stable region for the international security.
Mm-hmm. I want to get a little personal here. So you live here now, but you have a really compelling story that brought you here. So you personally know what it's like to live in war-torn Sudan. Just give us a sense. How many people in your family, were killed during the war in 2003? If you don't mind going there.
Absolutely, it's very sensitive. I lost almost 3 uncles, 3 aunties, half brothers. This is really hit me, and this was a devastating. I also lost my mom through that war. Which is something I really haven't talked about it, which is killing me inside. And I lost my 2 grandfathers through that war. Also were completely through, the village was completely destroyed by the militia group that supported at that time by al-Bashir, the criminal, the individual that wanted for international criminal court. He's still free man. And he was indicted an international criminal court, but he has not been arrested yet. So for me, this is a personally. And I was being taken as a child soldier to train and go and fight, but I was able, after I was trained, I was able to escape and go to Egypt. So this is my personal story. So this thing really hits me. And now when this war started again, I lost another family members, almost 3 or 4 family members I lost. So this continuously every day when I call, I have some family members, either they got hurt or they got killed.
How does that stick with you? You said you escaped. How did you escape?
I escaped through Egypt. So I was able to get my document by paying bribe, and then we just took that desert, which is I have to pay some ransoms for individuals to escape me throughout of that desert. to get to Egypt.
Okay.
That's my story.
Wow. And I wish we had more time to dive into that. Maybe we will down the road. But finally here, I mean, sometimes you hear from other people saying, hey, why are we spending money on Sudan when affordability is a problem here? Things are tight for a lot of people here. Well, what's your argument to people when they...
I mean, like I say, I absolutely agree that things are hard in Canada, and not just in Canada, around the world, people are suffering. And of course, in Canada, life is not as it used to be like when we came. And it's not just that, because everything is expensive anyway nowadays. But Canada is a leader around the world. Canada was found under the peace. And Canada has playing a lot of peaceful rules around the world, has peacekeeping mission. And if you imagine that, that's a lot of money. So I would just want to compare one thing. We cannot be more beside. If Canada spend money on Ukraine, we will not say anything in terms of Sudan. So then we have to be balanced. Canada has spent lots of money also to the Ukrainian crisis, which is, we know, was a lot double than we can see. So absolutely. So then if Canada spend money in Sudan, of course, we understand the situation is hard, but Canada is a leader of the free world. And that's how Canada is playing a very crucial role. If Canada can pledge more, absolutely is good. If not, then absolutely Canada can play another roles in terms of peacekeeping or other things. Canada has rules that they play, and we are very appreciated that as a Sudanese Canadian, I appreciate the government here, and I appreciate the rules they do, but I hope they can pledge more to solve this issue.
Well, Yahia, thank you for your time this morning. Thanks for sharing your experience and your story. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it too.
Yahia Abdul Rahman is a Sudanese war survivor who now lives in Winnipeg with his family. And by the way, he's also written a book about his experience called Darfur, A Kingdom Forgotten and Betrayed, Flames, Shadows, and Unbroken Spirit.
The puck may have dropped on the playoffs, but the news doesn't stop for hockey. I'm Brittany Greenslade, host of CBC Winnipeg News at 6. To get your local news, stream CBC Winnipeg News at 6, 24/7 on CBC Gem, the CBC News app, and selected streaming platforms. CBC Winnipeg News at 6, your local news on your favorite streaming device.
7:26 right now here on Information Radio. I'm Corey Funk, sitting in for Marcy Marcusa. And time now for Morning Sports with Scott Reguer. Good morning.
Hey, Corey.
So it wasn't the best of nights for Canadian teams in the NHL playoffs, which is kind of how it tends to go in the playoffs.
That's right. Par for the course. We'll start with the end of last night's game between Edmonton and Anaheim, Corey. In overtime, the puck went off of the skate of the Ducks' Ryan Poehling and appeared to cross the Oilers' goal line. After more than a minute and a half of deliberation, here's what the refs concluded.
After review, the puck completely crossed the goal line.
Quite a call, since replays do not show the puck crossing the line. Rather, it stayed under goalie Tristan Jarry's skate. Oilers coach Chris Knobloch very diplomatically pointed that out.
I can't see it going in. I can't see the line. You can't see any space between the blue line, and you see a lot of, similarly, when you talk about the blue line, offsides. There's been many times where I've seen, oh, this is offside, and, they don't have the absolute proof of it. I thought that was going to be the call.
Yeah, controversial calls aside, Corey, Edmonton did not do enough last night. They were outshot and out-hustled by the Ducks, who have scored 20 times against them in the first 4 games of this series. And here's another daunting stat. When you're down 3-1, you lose 91% of the time in your series. So that's the lay of the land for Edmonton. Montreal, meanwhile, lost narrowly to Tampa Bay, and so the Habs tied in that series at 2. We have the Manitoba Moose winning yesterday over Milwaukee. They go through to the second round. And in the PWHL, the playoff matchups will be Montreal against Minnesota, Ottawa against Boston.
And let's move over to playoff basketball now. Encouraging developments, actually, for the Toronto Raptors.
For sure. Encouraging, Corey, because their close win over Cleveland yesterday came without them being at their best. Far from it. Long-range shooting from beyond the three-point arc. Toronto made 4 shots on 30 attempts. That's not very good. Yet Scotty Barnes did all he could to get them over the finish line. 23 points, 9 rebounds, great defense. And his coach, Darko Rajakovic, says where Barnes is concerned, Corey, it is a sign of things to come.
Scotty, right now, the way he's playing, he's at 60% of a player that he's going to be in 2-3 years. Scott is going to be one of the best players in the league, and he's already one of the best players in the league. But how much he cares about winning, it's pushing him forward to do whatever it takes to win a game, and that's what makes him so special. So I expect him to continue getting better and improving.
Some comparing a Barnes rate now, Corey, to a younger, shorter version of Giannis Antetokounmpo. That's quite a prospect. Tied at 2 with the next game going on Wednesday.
And then finally here, this is something I'm super excited about. One of the greatest ever achievements in long-distance running.
Sebastian Sawe is going to break the 2-hour mark. He's going to win the London Marathon in incredible style and historic performance. 150.
Let's all raise a glass of electrolyte beverage, Corey, to Sebastian Sawe, who yesterday set a new world record. Came at the London Marathon. He shattered it, running the first sub-2-hour marathon in history. Now, it should be noted, his compatriot, Eliud Kipchoge, did run sub-2 hours in a marathon in 2019, but that was a carefully orchestrated, made-for-TV time trial. What Sawe did yesterday was, in an anything-can-happen actual race amongst thousands of competitors, asked what he had for breakfast. He ate 2 slices of bread, some honey, and some tea. Why do I have the feeling that tea company, is in the midst of a new ad campaign right now?
Yeah, I had 2 slices of bread and some honey, and I'm already exhausted.
Get out on the road, my friend. Let's see what you can do.
Will do. Thank you very much, Scott.
You bet.
That's Scott Reguer with your morning sports. Just ahead, we are going to be talking about the proposed social media ban. But right now, we'll get the details in your CBC Winnipeg News.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg at 7:30. A cool start to the last week of April in Winnipeg. Right now we are at 2 degrees. Our high today, a windy 9 with a mix of sun and clouds. It does warm up by the end of the week. A Winnipeg man is stuck in indefinite ICE detention. Clayton Herman says detainees in detention often go without proper food or medical care at Adelanto ICE Processing Center in California. CBC I-Team's Michelle Allen has the story.
Former Winnipegger Clayton Herman has spent nearly 200 days in ICE detention. The Adelanto Processing Center is owned by private prison company Geo Group, operating on behalf of ICE.
We are prisoners. Indefinite prisoners is what makes it worse, with no end in sight.
Herman is one of 58 Canadians in ICE detention as of March. Most detainees, like Herman, haven't been convicted of a crime. Herman says it's hard to get access to proper food and timely medical care at Adelanto. 4 Adelanto detainees have died since September. Herman went to the U.S. 20 years ago and says he overstayed his visa, which makes him an illegal immigrant. Then ICE took him into custody after a routine check-in as his case worked its way through immigration court. Sherry Aiken is a law professor at Queen's University.
It's the not knowing. Effectively, detention becomes indefinite, right? Because you don't have a clear indication of when you're going to be released. And that in and of itself is its own kind of torture.
Herman says he was recently denied release on bond, with no money for a lawyer and no idea when he'll get out. He says all he can do is try to survive the day ahead. Michelle Allen, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Some Winnipeg teens are pushing back against the province's plan to ban anyone under 16 from using social media and AI chatbots. If approved, it would be the first province in Canada to implement such a ban. Premier Rob Canoe says his government has a responsibility to protect youth from platforms that could harm their mental health. 15-year-old Gabrielle Tapper-Goldsman says any restrictions should be aimed at younger teens and kids. He says older teens like himself should be able to work with their parents to choose how they use social media.
We're in a day and age where we make friends all over the world. And one of the most important and vital things is to keep in contact with those friends. We, as a generation, survived a pandemic where a lot of our social interactions were taken away, and that helped us restore and keep those connections alive.
Now, some parents applaud the Premier's pledge to ban those kids from using social media and AI chatbots. Carrie Bacon says this ban would be good for her 5- and 3-year-old.
Excited, super excited. I think this is a step that the province needs to take. social media, like the research shows how social media is very detrimental towards mental health, and I think kids shouldn't be exposed to many of the things that they are.
The head of Manitoba's biggest school division backs the province's promise to ban social media for young people. Matt Henderson at the Winnipeg School Division says young people need protection.
In my travels throughout my neighborhood and my school division, children often will identify screens, social media, phones themselves as problematic and invasive in their lives.
Henderson says there is some urgency to enacting this ban, but he wants the province to take the time it needs to consult educators, parents, and kids. The provincial government has not said when the ban would be rolled out. Lawmakers in Nova Scotia, Quebec, and Saskatchewan are also considering this idea. You can hear more on this story coming up in this next half hour right here on Information Radio. U.S. President Donald Trump is recounting in detail the moment gunfire rang out Saturday night, giving an interview to the CBS program 60 Minutes. Reporter Nora O'Donnell asked Trump what he thought of the alleged gunman Cole Allen's manifesto. Now, Cole Allen is the man who took a gun and fired a shot at the White House Correspondents' Dinner on Saturday night.
And he also wrote this: "I'm no longer willing to permit a pedophile, rapist, and traitor to coat my hands with his crimes." What's your reaction to that?
Well, I was waiting for you to read that because I knew you would, because you're horrible people, horrible people. Yeah, he did write that. I'm not a rapist. I didn't rape anybody.
Do you think he was referring to you?
Excuse me. I'm not a pedophile. You read that crap from some sick person.
The suspect, Cole Allen, appears in U.S. federal court today. You can hear more on that story coming up on World Report at 8. Charges have been stayed against a former RCMP constable who was accused of stealing hundreds of dollars from someone's vehicle. Ben Harder resigned from the force last year while he was under investigation. It stemmed from an alleged incident in Portage la Prairie in November 2024. A person claimed Harder stole roughly $300 from their vehicle during a traffic stop. A spokesperson for the Crown tells CBC News there's no reasonable likelihood of conviction in this case because the complainant has since left Canada and prosecutors can't find them. You can find the latest news updated throughout the day at cbc.ca/Manitoba.
Thank you very much, Heather.
Thank you.
That's Heather Wells at your CBC News Desk. Abby Adiyemi, what's the word on the weather?
Well, we're looking at more of that breezy transition today with cloudy skies in the southern part of the province and up north. We're tracking light snow lingering in most of the regions. Here in the Red River Valley region, forecast for Winnipeg and nearby brings cloudy skies, becoming a mix of sun and clouds sometime this afternoon. Current temperatures hovering around 1 and 3 degrees in Winnipeg. Under this mostly cloudy skies, we have morning temperatures going to be around 5 degrees as those gusty northern winds develop. For the city, we're expecting a high of 9 degrees today with windy conditions tonight and a sunny high of 7 tomorrow. Now, for the other southern regions in the Pembina Valley region, from Morden towards Portage la Prairie, we're looking at 1 degree there. Also mostly cloudy with a slim chance of morning showers in the forecast. Highs around 9. In the Westman region, Brandon and nearby, we're currently at -1, cloudy with a high of 8 in the forecast under breezy northwest winds. From Dauphin towards Russell, we're tracking -2. Sunny skies there at this time. Some clouds will move in later and we'll see highs around 6 degrees. While in the Interlake region, Gimli and nearby, we're tracking 1 degree at this time. Mostly cloudy there with some windy conditions. You also warm up close to 10 degrees later in the day. Then we track into the central and northern part of the province. Temperatures between -2 and -7 right now. We're seeing light snow and flurries in most of the regions. For the part of Flin Flin, we're looking at light snow and some freezing rain in the mix there. Temperatures hovering near -5 with highs close to 2 degrees later. Norway House, we're seeing -5 there. Some sunny conditions. There's a slim chance of afternoon showers in the forecast. You get to warm to 3 degrees later. While for Thompson and Lean Lake and the Gillam area, this region is currently hovering between -2 and -6, depending on where you are. Light snow with highs of 2 degrees for the Thompson and Gillam area, while for Lynn Lake, your highs would get close to 0 later. Tudor Lake, good morning. You're currently at -7. It's snowing there at this time. Expect high of -4 under some gusty northwest winds. And finally, for the Churchill and York region, we're looking at a freezing fog in that part of the province. Current temperatures around -5. There's a good chance of more flurries in the forecast. We see the temperature get to -1 later in the day. So across board, it's more like a cloudy, windy spring day with scattered flurries in the north, and we'll see cloudy skies in the southern part, but that should clear. Winnipeg right now expecting a high of 9 degrees, current temperatures 2 in the city.
Thank you very much, Abby.
Thank you.
That is Abby Adiyemi. And Sierra, what's going on with the commute?
Still pretty quiet on the commuter line there, Corey. So I assume that, or it sounds like to me that the Monday commute is rolling on pretty well for you out there. But just something to note about a closure, northbound Pembina Highway overpass. There's a closure there. So the northbound Pembina Highway overpass bridge over Abenoji-Mikana will be closed for construction from April 27th, so today, until October 31st. So so pretty big closure there. So 2 northbound travel lanes will remain open by way of a median crossover onto the southbound overpass bridge there. So it sounds like those, you won't be separated there. You'll kind of be moving along together there in opposite directions. So you can expect delays there, and you should use caution when traveling through the area. The east side sidewalk will be closed, and pedestrians and cyclists are asked to follow the signed detour there. So a little bit of a bigger closure and a long-term closure there. So keep that in mind if you are heading northbound Pembina. There will be some delays there due to that, and will take some getting used to as well as we continue throughout the summer and into the fall.
Thank you very much, Sierra.
You're welcome.
Well, let's check in now with that proposed social media ban. Marcy, over the weekend when that was announced, that Wab Canoe is proposing a social media ban, an AI chatbot ban for kids 16 and under. She posted, and there's been hundreds of comments on her Facebook page.
About 200.
About 200, yeah. So we want to. So we thought we'd read at least a few of them so far. So Sierra, what have you seen?
Yeah, so Dario Monaco says social media and AI is a poison, especially for young minds. Doom scrolling is purposely designed to keep you hooked. This is a good thing. Tana Scott says, I'm not sure how effective it will be, but I guess you've got to start somewhere. Aaron Resinsoft says, instead of banning, shouldn't we be teaching responsibility and safety? What happens when these kids get older and have no idea how to navigate these waters because we haven't given them the tools? As well, Andy Welsh says, the internet is not a safe place for children. I support this decision. As well, Nicole Giesbrecht says, complete government overreach for sure. This should be left up to the parents to decide. My daughter's an athlete who uses social media for recruitment purposes, something good. And my other children, whom has a disability, uses AI to help him with many things. I feel this is short-sighted, and the people attempting to create this ban have not thought it through.
Also interesting anecdote here from Lisa Teal, who's kind of two minds on it. She says, my boys are 20 years old and 22 years old, and their devices had controls and timers, so they were allowed a certain amount of time a day. I don't remember what that was. It wasn't a lot then. The phones went off, and they were off at night. In Australia, the kids found a way around restrictions. I think the concept is good. I'm just not sure the government needs to be parenting. However, if I was a parent, perhaps the government legislating would help keep the phones out of schools. Just a hypothetical there. So lots of thoughts on that. And you can keep calling our listener line if you have thoughts on this. Are you for it, against it? And tell us why. Call us on our listener line. It's open. And we'll try to get some calls by the end of the show. 204-788-3205. That's 204-788-3205. Well, we thought we'd talk a little bit more about this, keep that conversation going, and play for you exactly what the Premier said about it this weekend. Here's Premier Wab Canoe when he made the announcement on Saturday at a fundraiser.
Do we want Manitoba to be a place where we serve technology, or do we want to be a place where we serve humanity and technology falls into line with that goal? And so I want to tell you that as your Premier, my most sacred responsibility is the protection and the safety of our children. And while our political opponents have tried to weaponize our kids and do some very, very nasty wedge politics, we are going to take action on things that are really harming our kids. And so these are forces that contribute to anxiety and depression. These are forces that lead to young women and girls being trafficked. And these are forces that lead to too many of our precious children taking their own lives. I'm talking about social media. You're doing those very, very awful things to kids, all in the names of a few likes, all in the name of more engagement, and all in the name of money. More money for a group of rich tech bros who already have a ton of money. So increasingly, social media and now AI chatbots are being used to hack our children's attention spans. Now, this is not by accident, this is intentional. These tools have been designed by armies of PhDs, people who understand our psychology, who understand our biology, and they have designed these tools and optimized them to hack our children's reward systems in their brain, to trigger the release of dopamine, to get them addicted to the infinite scroll, and to have them hooked on screen time before their brain has a chance to develop, before they've had the ability to build up reserves of judgment and resilience that could help insulate them. What's worse, they amplify comparisons between yourself and artificial standards. They amplify outrage, and they expose kids to content they are not ready for. Our kids will never be for sale, and their attention and their childhoods should never be profited from.
That was Premier Wab Kinew speaking at an event on Saturday about why he wants Manitoba to ban social media from teens. CBC's Santiago Arias Orozco spoke to parents and teens to find out what they think.
Delvin Jacobson. Yeah, I think I'd be for it. Yeah, honestly, it's been something that's been talked about since it's come up, and the AI chatbots and social media isn't that old, right? Especially AI chatbots. So I don't think there's no need for somebody under, I think, 15 or 16 to need one. I think it's important because of the just the people that are out there, like predators and everything else. You just can't, you can't be safe enough.
Guys, and my last name is Abu Jabal. I am 10 years old. Most kids and people, they mostly socialize with their friends online on these specific apps. So if they got banned, it would be a bit harder for them to socialize. But I mean, they can't go outside, talk with them, but sometimes people are far away and stuff. Yeah.
Nur Hamdan. I totally agree with this because there's a lot of things on social media inappropriate for kids. And we as family and busy parents, I think we cannot keep up with everything kids see on social media.
It's Raleigh and last name is Fitzgerald. I am 15. I mean, there's a lot of people who will use it excessively. They will maybe have less creativity or something just from spending too much time on it. It might be harder to feel in contact with the world. It might be harder to just know what's happening around, maybe more isolated or stuff like that.
Aria Anderson Merritt. I'm 13 years old. That'd be fine because it's just not helping us think for ourselves, so it kind of makes us dumber. People use it to cheat in school, so it's not really helping them get ahead. We wouldn't want our ambulance and fire truck and the people 911 calls to be only graduating because they use ChatGPT and AI.
CBC's Santiago Arias Orozco speaking to Manitoban parents and teens to find out what they think of a social media and AI chatbot ban. Well, let's keep the conversation going here about maybe what this ban could look like. Dozens of countries are moving forward with similar measures. Australia put age restrictions on social media last December, but we still don't know a lot about what this ban could look like here in Manitoba, how it would be enforced, and the timeline of when it would be implemented. And one expert is happy to see legislation moving in this direction. Carmi Levy is a technology analyst and journalist, and his work looks at the impact of social media on kids. And he joins us now from London, Ontario. Good morning, Carmi.
Good morning. So good to be with you.
So, what do you think a move like this means for Manitoba?
I think this is huge. The fact that Manitoba is the first sub-federal jurisdiction, the first province or territory to move in this direction. Up until now, this has been seen as largely a federal thing, and certainly Ottawa is working on similar legislation. We know that that's in the pipeline, likely as an update to upcoming online harms legislation. But for a province to do that and be the first one is incredibly notable, because it recognizes that we're going to need lots of stakeholders around the table. Every level of government needs to be involved. Premier Canute called this a sacred responsibility to protect children. And so that means you don't wait until the federal government gets its act in gear. You move forward on your own. And the fact that Manitoba is drawing that line in the sand, I think, is a hugely positive message. And certainly other provinces are watching this and learning from this and saying that they too intend to follow in these footsteps as well. So, we've been talking for years about the fight against big tech to protect our kids. We're now finally starting to see governments get with it, and it's incredibly heartening to see Manitoba leading the way.
We had actually someone call our listener line, and I was listening to it, and he said it's that he was concerned. He said, actually, I like this idea. It's a good thing, but he doesn't like that it's a province doing it and not the federal government at this point. He's concerned, it might be a piecemeal kind of thing. If every province does their own thing, it could be confusing, especially say if you're running a business that uses social media to, say, advertise or get the word out, and it could be tricky. What do you think about the fact that it's a province doing that, and how does that affect things?
Yeah, there's definitely a risk of there being a bit of a patchwork effect, that if different provinces come up with their own legislation, that they may not all be in lockstep with each other. There may be inconsistencies. And certainly this is a technology that it doesn't stop at the border, but the legislation certainly does. So how do you enforce something that is so global on a provincial basis? I certainly understand that. But at the same time, we're seeing an unprecedented level of communication between the provinces, between all stakeholders across the country. And so we know that there's communication between them. We know that Ottawa is in conversation with provincial leaders as well, so that as provincial legislation comes on stream, it will be consistent with laws that are in place in neighboring provinces and territories, as well as whatever the Canadian government comes up with. Also, the fact that Manitoba is leading the way means that it can provide input to Ottawa as it crafts a national strategy and then brings provinces in on that strategy. So I think there's relatively limited risk of there being inconsistency here, because everyone seems to be talking the same game. Nobody wants to be heading off kind of on their own direction, leaving everyone else behind.
What's also unique about this ban is that it does include AI chatbots. Tell us, what you think about that, and what your concerns about AI chatbots are, and how unique is this compared to other bans that have already gone into place?
It's a major best practice here because, for example, Australia was the first country that introduced this kind of legislation, and it only targeted certain social media platforms, did not include AI platforms like chatbots, like ChatGPT. And we know full well that as kids are banned from social media platforms, they simply shift their time and their attention to other platforms that are not banned. And so they're spending a lot more time down under on AI platforms that expose them to even more risks that are, of course, at this point uncontrolled. So the fact that Manitoba is casting a wider net, I think, is a really important best practice, recognizes that the technology and the way our kids use those technologies, they're evolving very quickly. And the legislation needs to keep up, and in this case, keep ahead of that. And the only way you're going to accomplish that is include AI in the mix. And I think that's a really smart way to go. I would expect that to be informing whatever the federal government decides to implement as well.
Mm-hmm. So as mentioned earlier, we're still missing some details, like, when and how this will be enforced. But we do know that, Premier Wabkanu wants to ban youth 16 and under from using social media and AI chatbots. So which age group do you think is most vulnerable when it comes to the harms of social media? Because we actually did hear even from some teens, they're saying, hey, I'm even if they're like 14, 15, 16, maybe I am old enough to make my own decisions and work with my parents on a better plan. Even some parents wrote in and say, hey, we had a plan and it worked, right?
Yeah, we've seen significant variation in sort of precisely which age these laws will apply to. In Australia, it's under 16. In Greece, it's under 15. Other countries are in the 14 range. And the thing is, you can't put all kids into the same category. Some kids are more mature, some are less. Some kids grow up in families where the parents are actively involved in their social media lives, and other kids are kind of left to fend for themselves. So no law is ever going to precisely target every child ideally. You kind of have to draw one line and then hope that it applies to the largest number. In this case, I think Manitoba's we are sending a message when we say 16 and under. That is the most extensive. It's the most aggressive. It covers the widest swath of our teens. And I think that it sends a message that the government is serious about this, that they're not just going to move. Right now, the minimum age in Canada is 13. They're not just going to move it up by a year and call it done. They really want this to be comprehensive. And of course, there also will be, we've seen legislation that includes exceptions for families where the parents do feel they can actively manage the experience with their kids. And so with parental consent, if there are kind of carve outs so that kids can gain access to the supposedly banned tools for reasons of, say, social outreach or mental health support, those exceptions will hopefully be available in this case, which allows sort of greater adaptability to the specific needs of an admittedly very wide range of children and needs.
So Australia was, essentially the first mover in all this. I imagine we'll be looking to them a lot as Manitoba looks to craft some kind of legislation. What have we learned about what's worked and what hasn't so far from Australia?
We know that they've succeeded in disabling a significant amount of accounts fairly early. Within about a month of it being enacted in December, they had already targeted about 4.7 million accounts compared to 5.1 million kids who were included in the ban age range. But of course, kids, they subscribe to more than one account. They subscribe across multiple platforms. So this certainly doesn't mean we can call it done now, but it means at least initially at scale, they can deploy these technologies that will target these kids and be somewhat effective. Are there leakers? Are there exceptions to the rule? Of course, we're hearing anecdotal stories of kids who use their parents' identification or an older sibling's identification to fool the age verification tools into believing that they are older than they are. Other kids have modified their behaviors, acting like they're older, using languages and phrasings that are older to also trick the technology into not banning them from the platform. So there are all sorts of exceptions. I think there will always be kids who find a way to access the technology, but at the very least, the government there has succeeded in telegraphing this is a problem. We're going to do something about it. It isn't perfect, but it's a start, and we'll work from here. And based on that Australian experience, I think that bodes well for whatever Canada and Canada's provinces and territories ultimately decide to do as well.
Any data though on how it's impacted mental health, or is it still too soon?
Still too soon. All we're hearing is anecdotal, and some of the anecdotal feedback that we're seeing is, kids are saying that they're spending more time with their friends in social situations. They're spending more time engaged in physical activity, which does have a beneficial impact on their mental health. And so, and incidences of digital cyberbullying are also on the wane. And so we're starting to see some early indicators. Obviously, the hard data, the research will follow, but I would expect it to show a positive impact on that as well, which of course will serve as fuel for other countries to join in with their own initiatives and laws.
And got about a minute left here, Carmi, but finally here, enforcement is going to be a big thing too. You mentioned they had some success, but age verification is the biggest thing. How should, not how it should, but how do you think Manitoba, what are its options for enforcing that using age verification?
Well, I certainly hope that they don't want to develop the age verification technology on their own. Government's not particularly effective in the technology realm. We all remember the Phoenix Pay system, the ArriveCan app, COVID Alert. This isn't something that governments are particularly good at. In Australia, they delegated the technology for age verification to the technology platforms. And I think that's really the route we want to follow here in Canada. Let the tech companies figure it out. We oversee it. As governments, we establish standards for them. They align with those standards, and if they don't, there will be consequences. And so it really is a partnership model that leverages the best of what technology companies can bring, along with oversight from governments to ensure that they're doing the right thing on behalf of the population and kids who they're trying to keep safe.
Well, Carmi, we'll leave it there. Thanks for your time. I imagine this won't be the last time we talk about it.
I will keep watching, and I look forward to it. Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you. Carmi Levy is a technology analyst and journalist. For more on this story, visit cbc.ca/Manitoba. Time now for news headlines with Heather Wells.
Who used to be from Winnipeg, is going on 200 days in an ICE detention center. Clayton Herman moved to the U.S. 20 years ago and overstayed his visa, making him an illegal immigrant. He is now in Adelanto ICE Processing Center in California and has no idea when he'll be released. Charges have been stayed against a former RCMP constable who was accused of stealing hundreds of dollars from someone's vehicle. Ben Harder resigned from the force last year while he was under investigation. We'll hear the latest on that story in our next local news coming up at 8:30.
Still to come here on Information Radio, a new workshop is offering access to healthcare helpers for seniors in Transcona. We're going to hear about the students volunteering their time to help connect people to online healthcare tools. That's coming up.
On cue. Lee Sung-jin is a filmmaker. You might know him best from his gigantic Netflix hit Beef. Beef is now in its second season, and he'll be here to talk about his fascination with anger and how years of introspection and therapy led to actually authentic writing.
I guess I do have a chip on my shoulder in a lot of ways.
Q with Tom Power this morning at 10:30 in Newfoundland, and on CBC Listen or wherever you get your podcasts. The CBC News is next. Coming up in half an hour, it's The Current with Matt Galloway.
A lot of the world's attention is pointed at the Strait of Hormuz these days. It is a choke point in the U.S.-Israel-Iran war, meaning it's being used strategically to shape that war. What are the other physical and economic choke points around the world and how they're used? Coming up on The Current.
Is World Report. Good morning, I'm Christine Birak. We are learning more about the suspect in the shooting at the White House Correspondents' Dinner in Washington, D.C. Cole Thomas Allen is set to make his first court appearance today. He is facing several charges after a man charged past security at the event. One Secret Service agent was shot and wounded. The CBC's Willie Lowry is in our Washington bureau. Willie, what can you tell us about this suspect?
Officials believe 31-year-old Cole Allen traveled to Washington by train from his home in Los Angeles, transiting through Chicago before arriving at the Washington Hilton, where the Correspondents' Dinner is held annually. Officials say he arrived a day or two before the event. Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche, who was at the dinner, says the investigation is ongoing, but one thing appears certain.
It does appear that he did, in fact, have set out to target folks that work in the administration, likely including the president.
There are several reports of the suspect sending notes to family members, as well as alleged online posts criticizing the current administration. U.S. President Donald Trump tells 60 Minutes that the suspect wrote a manifesto.
He's radicalized. He was a Christian, a believer, and then he became an anti-Christian, and he had a lot of change. He's been going through a lot based on what he wrote.
Authorities are said to be combing through social media for more information about the suspect.
Willie, what are we expecting at today's court appearance?
This is the first time we'll see and possibly hear from Allen since his arrest Saturday night. He's likely to face a slew of charges, including using a firearm during a crime of violence and assault on a federal officer with a dangerous weapon. According to Janine Pirro, U.S. Attorney for the District of Columbia, a Secret Service agent was shot during the incident, but he is okay. She says more charges will likely be laid.
The CBC's Willie Lowry in Washington. Thanks, Willie.
My pleasure.
Lebanon's health ministry says 14 people were killed yesterday and dozens more were wounded in Israeli airstrikes, making Sunday the deadliest day since a ceasefire between Israel and Hezbollah came into effect more than a week ago. Explosions were heard in southern Lebanon as Israel's military targeted what it says are Hezbollah sites, including rocket launchers and a weapons depot. The strikes hit several towns beyond Israel's yellow line. The IDF says it warned residents to leave ahead of the attack. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is accusing Hezbollah of dismantling the April 16th ceasefire. The Israeli military says a soldier was killed and 6 others were injured by a Hezbollah drone attack in Lebanon. Iran's foreign minister is in Russia, where he's been meeting with President Vladimir Putin. Abbas Araghchi says he is holding consultations with Russian friends about the U.S.-Israel war on Iran. He's also blaming the U.S. for a breakdown in peace negotiations. Potential talks over the weekend were canceled by President Donald Trump. That means there's no prospect of the Strait of Hormuz reopening anytime soon. That's pushing oil prices higher today. Brent crude is up 2% to over $107 a barrel. That's the highest since both sides agreed to a ceasefire about 3 weeks ago. Prime Minister Mark Carney is announcing a new policy initiative this hour.
We're creating the Canada Strong Fund, Canada's first sovereign wealth fund.
In a video released ahead of his announcement, Carney says the goal of the fund is to bolster Canadian economic independence. The CBC's Rafi Boudjikanian is in our parliamentary bureau. Rafi, what else are we likely to hear from the Prime Minister about this fund?
You can tell the Liberals want to make a big deal out of it, putting him out just a day before the spring economic update expected tomorrow. Carney will theme the announcement around, yes, building Canada strong, in keeping with some of the other branding we've seen from this government around safeguarding the country's economic sovereignty. Canadians will be able to invest into the fund and get returns on that investment, and the federal government will use the money in partnership with the private sector to build what it's been calling these big national interest projects.
And Rafi, all of this is happening as the newly minted Advisory Committee on Canada-U.S. Economic Relations meets today for the first time. What are we expecting out of that?
Well, they do have that mandate that's all about looking at what the relationship between Canada and the U.S. should look like going forward. The group itself is not completely new. Justin Trudeau, Carney's predecessor, had struck such a group, but there was a bit of a shakeup last week. Former Conservative elected officials like Lisa Raitt and Erin O'Toole are in. So is Candice Lang, the chair of the Canadian Chamber of Commerce. Former Alberta NDP Premier Rachel Notley and Labour leader Hassan Yousaf are out. The new group's meeting is coming about 2 months ahead of a deadline for Canada, the US, and Mexico to agree to a review of CUSMA, the three-way free trade deal between the countries. Now, Mexico is expected to start two-way formal talks with the US later in May, while there is no date circled on Canada's calendar yet.
All right, thanks, Rafi. Rafi Boudjikanian in Ottawa.
You're welcome.
A Winnipeg man is stuck at a detention facility being run by U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement. Clayton Herman says he and other ICE detainees often go without proper food or medical care at the processing center in California. As the CBC's Michelle Allen reports, it's not clear when or how he'll get out.
In the Mojave Desert, behind barbed wire, Clayton Herman has spent nearly 200 days at Adelanto ICE Processing Center. It's a detention facility owned by a private prison company called Geo Group.
We are prisoners. Indefinite prisoners is what makes it worse, with no end in sight.
Herman says proper food and medical care are scarce at Adelanto. He's one of 58 Canadians in ICE detention as of March. Most detainees, like Herman, haven't been convicted of a crime. Herman moved to the U.S. 20 years ago. He says he overstayed his visa, which makes him an illegal immigrant. Then ICE took him into custody after a routine check-in. Sherry Aiken is a law professor at Queen's University. She says legally, detainees must have access to proper food and timely medical care.
And it's very clear that the U.S. is in flagrant violation of those minimum standards.
Congresswoman Norma Torres visits Adelanto every week to advocate for detainees. She says the inhumane conditions are intentional.
It's part of the mental trauma
that they are being put through to force them to self-deport.
4 Adelanto detainees have died since September. ICE referred questions to GEO Group. They said it provides around-the-clock access to medical care and dietitian-approved meals. Herman says he was recently denied release on bond, with no money for a lawyer, and no idea when he'll get out. He says all he can do is try to survive. Michelle Allen, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Canadian travel to the U.S. has been down for more than a year. According to Statistics Canada's latest report, Canadians are digging in their heels to avoid crossing the border. But businesses in Las Vegas are betting at-par deals can convince some to return. Sophia Harris reports.
That means $1 Canadian equals $1 US. No exchange rate, all the fun.
3 downtown Las Vegas resorts are trying to woo back Canadians with at-par pricing. The resort's owner, Derek Stevens, says the offer sends Canadians a strong message.
We miss you and we want you to come back to Las Vegas.
But it may take more than deals to reverse the continued drop in Canadian travelers to the United States. March marked the 14th consecutive month of steep declines. Canadian return trips to the U.S. plummeted 32% that month compared to March 2024, when the U.S. travel boycott had yet to take hold.
It's just a scary place that the U.S. is becoming right now.
Bruce Newman lives close to the U.S. border in Fredericton. He's boycotting U.S. travel due to President Donald Trump's trade war and comments about Canada becoming the 51st state. Newman says he and his wife won't return without political change.
Definitely, while Trump's in office, we're not interested in going to the States at all.
Another lingering problem for the U.S. tourism industry, some boycotters are changing their travel habits. Last year, fewer Canadians traveled to the U.S., but overseas trips rose by 9%, and domestic tourism spending increased by 2.5%. The Iran war, which is driving up jet fuel prices, could further spur domestic tourism.
And enjoy the at-par hotel rate at check-in.
However, casino owner Stevens is betting that even in a political trade war, at-par deals will be worth the gamble. Sophia Harris, CBC News, Toronto.
That is the latest national and international news from World Report. If you're enjoying the World Report podcast, please follow us. Tell a friend. It helps to spread the word. I'm Christine Birak. This is CBC News.
Good morning, Manitoba. You're listening to Information Radio here on CBC Radio 1, 89.3 FM, 990 AM, and everywhere on the CBC Manitoba YouTube page. I'm Corey Funk, in for Marcy Marcusa. 3 degrees right now at the Forks. We're going to be warming up to 9 here in Winnipeg, and sunny and, well, above 0, which is all we can really ask for this April, is ahead for us this week in the forecast. We'll get details for you just ahead. Coming up this half hour on the show, a new workshop is offering access to healthcare helpers for seniors in Transcona. We're going to learn more about the students volunteering their time to help connect people to online healthcare tools. That's coming up just ahead. We have 2 people in studio talking all about that. Also, we've been asking you what you think about this proposed social media ban for youth 16 and under. And we're going to play a little bit of a response to that as well. That's coming up here on Information Radio. Right now, though, let's check in with Heather Wells with a look at news headlines.
Well, some Winnipeg teens are pushing back against the province's plan to ban social media and AI chatbots for people under the age of 16. 15-year-old Gabriel Tapper-Goldsman says any restriction should be aimed at younger teens and kids. He says older teens like himself should be able to work with their parents to choose how they use social media. Premier Wab Kinew says the ban would apply to those 16 and under. He has not yet said how it will be enforced. A man from Winnipeg is going on 200 days in an ICE detention center. Clayton Herman moved to the U.S. 20 years ago. He overstayed his visa, making him an illegal immigrant. He now is in Adelanto ICE Processing Center in California, and he has no idea when he'll be released. I'll be back with more on those stories and other news coming up at 8:30.
Thank you very much, Heather.
Thank you.
That's Heather Wells at your CBC News desk. Abby Adeyemi, what's going on with the weather?
Well, we're waking up to some cloudy conditions, though we'll see those cloudy transitions today with breezy breezy northern winds in the southern parts of the province. And if you look up north, we're seeing light snow still holding things down. No warnings, but remember those extreme cold from early in the season that has finally broken, and the northern communities like Churchill still dealing with more like freezing fog and light snow, which may impact visibility and travel this morning in the region. For Winnipeg right now, 3 degrees at the Forks, 2 degrees at the airport, mostly cloudy. We are looking out for a mix of sun and clouds today as the cloud cover begins to break. Expect our temperatures to warm up close to 10 degrees with those gusty northern winds. We'll see it click at almost 50 kilometers an hour, so take it easy. We're still making that, it still makes it feel more like chilly this morning. While across the southern regions, temperatures hovering between -1 and 2 degrees with some clear conditions on its way. Up north, it's a different story. Some areas around Gillam and Lynn Lake, we're seeing light snow falling there. Highs would only get to 2 degrees today, while further north towards Tudula Lake, we're seeing temperatures holding more like that light snow steady with -7 at this time and warming up to -4 later. Churchill, just seeing freezing fog, and that should leave later, but there's a good chance of snow still continuing through the morning. For Winnipeg right now, let's leave it at 3 degrees, and we warm up close to 10 later in the day.
Thank you very much, Abby.
Thank you.
Sierra Sanders, what's going on with the commute?
Yeah, Corey, got a call from David about a stalled vehicle on eastbound Broadway in that right turning lane as you onto Maryland. So as you're heading down eastbound Broadway at Maryland and you're looking to turn right onto Maryland, there's a stalled car there in that turning lane. So, and it looks pretty backed up according to Google Maps. That indication is that dark red color, which means slow. So it's going to be slow in that area as that is a busy intersection, and Maryland does get a little busy during these rush hours. So something to keep in mind there if you are in the area. We still have a little bit of time left in the show. So if there is something that is getting in your way, you can give me a call on the CBC commuter line. The number is 204-788-3093.
Well, up next here on Information Radio, an upcoming workshop is pairing up seniors with young, aspiring healthcare providers, connecting them to online provincial healthcare services. Healthcare Helpers was created by Radisson MLA Jaline Dela Cruz and will be facilitated by Rupak Barar, a science student at the University of Manitoba. And both Jaline and Rupak are joining us in studio this morning. Good morning.
Good morning. Thanks for having us.
So, Jillian, I want to start with you. So, I've been told that the idea for Healthcare Helpers actually came to you accidentally. So, what was the story there behind that?
Yeah, so there's this incredible organization in Radisson and Transcona called the Transcona Council for Seniors, and they do a series of different workshops, and one of their most subscribed workshops is actually an iPad training for seniors. And it's run by volunteers from a nearby high school. And one day, me and my staff, actually Alicia, one of my assistants, we brought in some ice cream sandwiches for the workshop just to pop in and say hello and see how everything was run. But actually, the students that day, for whatever reason, couldn't make it. So we became the workshop facilitators. And there were a lot of questions that came up about this new mysterious plastic health card at the time and how to book on MediNav. And so we thought, this actually might be a service that we can work up as a constituency office, test it out in Radisson, and see if we can empower healthcare students, the future of our healthcare system, in the process.
So when you're talking about these digital healthcare services, help now, like what kind of services are you talking about?
Yeah, so our government has advanced a lot of really key things that our communities have been waiting for recently, including, getting rid of that disintegrating paper health card, replacing it with a plastic one that you can keep in your wallet, and also enabling you to use that plastic health card to sign up for an account on MediNav to book an appointment with your minor injury, with your walk-in, much sooner than you would have otherwise found out about. So MediNav allows you to type it in, so MEDINAV, it's short for Medical Navigator, and .ca will allow you to see all of the walk-in appointments that are available and that you can actually book yourself into within like half an hour's notice. So yeah, there's that and the plastic health card, but the workshop will also encompass a little bit about where to go for what. So for what injury or ailment of yourself or your grandkids or anyone around you, what would be the best place to go for that, whether that's a minor injury, an urgent care, emergency room, whether it's something that can wait a day or two at a primary care clinic as well.
So Rupak, how did you get involved in this, and what made you want to be part of this initiative?
I've known Jolene for a pretty long time. We had a similar comeuppance, I guess. We went to the same high school, and she approached me with the idea, and I thought it was such a good opportunity and such a great way to connect with our community. Jolene is really good at connecting with her constituents in this way, so it was a great opportunity for me to get involved with her and meet some of the people that we have in our constituency, and also spend time with my friends, our volunteers, and work on some programming that will help a lot of people.
And go ahead.
I was going to say, Rupak's super humble. So she's studying for her MCAT this summer. And I'm
so
like,
you want to be a doctor.
Fingers crossed she stays in Manitoba. Yeah. Though, absolutely, like she's super involved as well at the U of M, and the other volunteers too in the workshop. Like we've got a pharmacist, Cherry, we've got future nurses, we've got future doctors. Like they could staff an entire unit one day together.
And how's the workshop going so far? Like any success stories you want to share? Or?
Yeah, we actually have our first workshop this Thursday.
Okay, it's coming up. Gotcha.
Yeah, at the Transcona Library. And we're all good to go. Jolene and I have been working on the material for a couple months.
Yeah.
And we have a lot of things that we're excited about. Can I share some of the material?
Absolutely.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, we have wins and wishes cards for the attendees. They can tell us, what they think is a win in healthcare, what they want to see from us, future healthcare providers and the government and current providers. So yeah, I'm really excited about that. And obviously the programming where we actually help them navigate MediNav and how they can actually access the appointments and plastic health cards.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, just an opportunity for us as students to connect with, potential patients and community members that we can help out before we get to where we want to be. I often talk about that. It's hard when you're just an undergrad, you're not in your programming yet and not learning the hands-on skills that you'll be using, but we're always itching to get involved somehow. So this is a great opportunity to do so.
And probably a good chance to understand the system a bit more, right? Obviously, you learn the theory, things like that. But then especially if you want to be a doctor, to get the ins and outs, actually how people are accessing it and those problems. Because as a doctor, you got to advocate for those things too down the road as well, I imagine.
Yeah, of course. It's always about the patient and who you're helping. So this is a great way to build that connection, build those skills really early on, which I really appreciate.
And Jolene, so you noticed a need in your community for assistance in accessing these online tools. Are you worried that not enough Manitobans are aware that services like MediNav exist at all, or might have trouble just with the technology side of things in general? Because this is just in the Transcona era you've noticed it. So what are your concerns there, and maybe what could your government help do to make that better?
Totally. So I think at the grassroots level, there's a lot that, as government, we can do the really big things together. Though at a grassroots level, we really, really rely on everyday Manitobans to carry that message forward, to be stewards in their communities for these services that we're advancing to hopefully bring care to folks a lot faster. So there are a lot of systems like your traditional doctor's office, your family physician, the places that a lot of folks that might not be comfortable with technology have already built a habit of relying on and going back to. But what these tools do is it offers a whole other opportunity to get care faster if you know how to use them. And so actually, yes, just in Transcona and Radisson, there's a huge need that we heard that we're answering. So, we've been talking about it, like Rupak mentioned, we've been working on it for a couple of months now. And I've been, kind of in every community space that I'm in, bringing it up And just yesterday, actually, I was with Rupak's family at, I want to say it was at Guru Nanak Darbar, the Gurdwara on McLeod. And they were so interested, the leadership of the Gurdwara, everyone there, they were so interested in potentially having a workshop then and there too down the road as well. So there's a lot of bridges that we can build and community spaces that we can, meet people at to spread the word on this. And I know that a number of our government MLAs are doing it in their own way because they know their communities best, though. With the uptake that we might see on Thursday and the interest that we're getting from community for this workshop, I have no doubt that, that we'll be able to offer it in multiple MLA offices down the road.
So in terms of what's on offer now, I imagine if there's some listeners wondering, hey, how do I sign up for this? Or how, I have maybe a loved one, a relative, a friend who might benefit from this. How do they sign up and what can they know?
So I believe you can sign up through the Transcona Library website. So we have a QR code there with an RSVP form that they can fill out on behalf of themselves or on behalf of their family members. It's a really quick and easy sign up, and all they really need to know is that we encourage them to bring their own device, and if they're unable to, we have those available to provide as well. So it's super quick and easy, and we're excited to see everyone there.
And is there a limited number of seats, or is it kind of, if all of a sudden if a lot of people show up? Or
we're looking at 25.
Okay.
So once the RSVP gets to that point, because we've got five students volunteering, and I'll have staff there as well. And so, really, we don't want to dilute it too much because the whole appeal is to have kind of that one-to-one help navigating through. Though, like we mentioned already, we're really hoping that we can offer even more workshops in the future and maybe even make it out to some senior homes or make it out to, spaces of faith and other places that people come to naturally for community.
Well, thanks so much for your time and all the best with the workshop. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Corey.
Jalene De La Cruz and MLA is the MLA for Radisson. Rupak Brar is a science student at the University of Manitoba who plans on studying medicine. Healthcare Helpers takes place this Thursday, 2 p.m. at the Transcona Library.
On This is Manitoba, we celebrate who we are, and we lean into the challenges here that can make this place even better. I'm Marcy Marcusa, host of This is Manitoba. On the podcast, we tackle one topic in a new episode every Friday. It's always about us, the news, and the people here. Get into some local listening. Find and follow This is Manitoba wherever you get your podcasts.
8:24 right now, and of course, big talker in our province right now is the recent announcement that the NDP government does plan to ban social media and AI chatbots for youth 16 and under. And we want to hear what you have to say about it. And we got this listener line.
Hi, my name is Braden Van Aert. So what I think is bans aren't really effective in all cases, and I think what they should be starting with is providing education to youth, parents, and teachers, and then providing toolkits for parents and teachers to deal with social media. Bans aren't really easily enforceable, and I don't think they're going to be effective. Thanks.
And thank you for calling in. Keep those calls coming. We want to hear from you. We might, if we have more, we'll play them on Up to Speed and throughout the week, because I'm sure there's lots of thoughts out there we've heard already throughout the show. You can share on our listener line. Give us a call, 204-788-3205. That's 204-788-3205. Or if you would rather email, you can email us as well, radio893@cbc.ca. That's radio893 at cbc.ca. Well, we do have some time for some music, which is a little apropos for the topic. Winnipeg's own Cassidy Mann has grappled with the consequences of spending too much time comparing yourself to others on social media, and she wrote a song about it. Here she is with Disappointing the Internet.
Should I be at a party? Should I be more social? Should I feel guilty? My night is over. Is it pathetic to spend a Friday in my bedroom? Does it count as smiling if it doesn't show up on a screen? 'Cause I see other people on the World Wide Web, I lose it all. They're doing it
That's Winnipeg's own Cassidy Mann with Disappointing the Internet. And we do have lots of thoughts from Manitobans coming in on that proposed ban on social media and AI chatbots. One of them appears to be an educator. Kev Roberts wrote, "What age and how will this be enforced? I legitimately use generative AI with my students. They're developing the skills to navigate this reality. Banning them doesn't support growth." Dale Taylor says the government law can never replace parental responsibility, in my opinion. Also, Jake Langford, he says, "I don't understand how you regulate and enforce this at a provincial level." And also, Orlando Braun finally says this is a smart and aggressive move. It will also incentivize parents and teachers to talk to their children about these dangers. Lots of thoughts on this, and we'll be gauging those thoughts throughout the day here on CBC Radio 1 on our local programming. And we do want to hear from you. I'll give that listener line one more time, 204-788-3205 if you want to weigh in. I'm Corey Funk, sitting in for Marcy Marcusa. This is Information Radio on 89.3 FM. And up next, your CBC Winnipeg News.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg at 8:30. It's cloudy. It is cool. Right now we're at 3 degrees. That wind is going to be strong from the northwest, keeping us cool. Mix of sun and clouds this afternoon and a high of 9. A man who was born in Winnipeg is going on 200 days in an ICE detention center. Clayton Herman moved to the U.S. 20 years ago. He overstayed his visa, making him an illegal immigrant. He is now in Adelanto ICE Processing Center in California.
You're here for an indefinite amount of time. Regular prisoners, they see a light at the end of a tunnel of when their time will be up. We have none of that. No finish line at the end of a road. We're staring into the void.
Herman says it's hard to access proper food or medical care at Adelanto. He is one of 58 Canadians in ICE detention as of March. Herman says he was recently denied release on bond, and without money for a lawyer, he doesn't know when he might be out. Well, mixed feelings from some Manitoba kids about the province's plans to clamp down on how young people access the digital world. The province wants to ban anyone under 16 from using social media and AI chatbots. If approved, Manitoba would be the first province in Canada to implement this ban. Premier Rob Canoe says his government has a responsibility to protect youth from platforms that could harm their mental health. 10-year-old Kais Abu Jabal agrees with banning AI chatbots, but says social media plays an important role in the world, even at his age. He says a ban on social media for young people could impact his friendships.
Kids and people, they mostly socialize with their friends online on these specific apps. So if they got banned, it would be a bit harder for them to socialize. But I mean, they can't go outside, talk with them, but sometimes people are far away.
The Canadian Centre for Child Protection is standing by Manitoba's decision to ban children from social media. The charity says tens of thousands of children have been victimized on these platforms for years, and age restrictions are needed. Now, the ban is also resonating with parents in Winnipeg, including Noor Hamdan, who has 2 children.
There's a lot of things on social media like inappropriate for kids, and we as family and busy parents, I think we cannot keep up with everything kids see on social media.
The provincial government has not said when the ban will be rolled out. Lawmakers in Nova Scotia, Quebec, and Saskatchewan are also considering the idea. Now, Parliament Hill will be the scene today of a rally by children's advocates desperate for the government to move quickly to bring in online harms legislation. Children First Canada CEO Sarah Austin says the bill needs to cover AI chatbots and video games. She says recent months have seen a real escalation in harms linked to AI chatbots. Some gaming platforms have also proven to be unsafe for young people who risk being extorted in chats with adults pretending to be children. Well, happening right now in Ottawa,
we're creating the Canada Strong Fund, Canada's first sovereign wealth fund.
Prime Minister Mark Carney making that announcement this morning. Carney says the fund's intended to help fund major projects.
The Canada Strong Fund will invest alongside the private sector in nation-building projects to create wealth for Canadians today and our kids tomorrow. And if you have a bit of extra money, we'll make it easy for you to invest in the fund to help build Canada Strong for all.
The Canada Strong Fund's announcement, it comes a day before Carney's government is set to unveil its spring economic statement. Well, runners took their dogs to Assiniboine Park yesterday for a possum cause.
No.
The 5th in-person Fun and Furry Dog Run raises money for Dog Rescue Canine Advocates Manitoba. This year, about 450 families took part, running or walking with their four-legged friends, 5 or 10 kilometers. Red Javier ran 5K with his yellow lab, Hugo.
Well, a lot of dogs running together with us, and it's fun. It's really fun.
The event is hosted by the Manitoba Marathon and sponsored by Manitoba Hydro. You can find the latest news updated throughout your day. All you have to do is head to cbc.ca/Manitoba.
You know, when you said for a possum cause, I
Yes.
thought, I didn't know the possums needed help.
The possums, different spelling.
Thank you very much, Heather. That's Heather Wells at your CBC News desk. And Sierra Sanders in with a last look at the commute.
Yeah, Corey, got a call from Jen about a stalled truck. So northbound Kenniston and Lowson Crescent, there's a stalled truck blocking the middle lane there going northbound. So you want to make sure to keep right to pass. It can get a little bit busy there. She did mention that things were starting to back up when she called. So northbound Kenniston and Lowson Crescent, there's a stalled truck blocking the middle lane there. You want to make sure to keep right to pass. As well, we heard from David a little while ago about eastbound, if you're heading down eastbound Broadway, just as you're about to turn right onto Maryland there in that turning lane, there was a stalled vehicle in that lane. And it looks to be still causing some backups. I took a quick look at Google Maps and it is still showing dark red, so it means slow. So a couple of things to keep in mind there as you continue your morning commute.
Thank you very much, Sierra. Abby, the weather.
Well, Corey, I'll tell you, for the northern part of the province, those extreme conditions we've been seeing like for some days, it's finally going to be leaving that territory, but you still need to deal with today and tomorrow. By midweek, guess what, Corey? Most of the regions will be above zero. Like from Thursday, we should start seeing double digits into the 15s and the 16s. While on the northern part of the province, we should be seeing +5s and +6s. For today, just cloudy transitions and breezy northern winds in the south and light snow up north. Winnipeg and most regions down south, we warm up close to 10 degrees today.
Thank you very much, Abby.
Thank you.
Thanks to our associate producers, Mary Rose Villena, Sophia Peralta Baron, Chloe Friesen, and the news team, Heather Wells, Joni Nicolo, and Darren Bernhout, and our live team, Abby Adiyemi, Darren Morash, and Sierra Sanders. Leif Larson is our senior producer of audio, and Nelly Gonzalez is our show producer, and Marcy Marcusa helped produce this show as well. The Current is next.